Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast, Tuesday edition of the Rodcast, creeping closer and closer to football season. Yesterday, it was 12 days away from the start of football season for the Longhorns. Today, we are 11 days away from the start of Texas football season. Of course, we will talk some Texas football. We'll hear from the head coach, courtesy of my man Patrick, breaking all the sound down. We got audio of Steve Sarkisian, so we'll get into that here in the first segment. Talk some Texas football. Speaking of Texas football, an icon, a legend, a legendary lifetime Longhorn, decided to call it quits and retire officially, Colt McCoy. But he is going to be joining the broadcast booth. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also get into some other news. It is somewhat related to Texas football, but it's some college football news, and we'll dive into that. NFL news, notes, and nuggets coming up next hour. We'll dive into the rookie quarterbacks. I want to look at those guys a little bit. Also, some of the trends that you can already notice that have changed for some teams during the some tendencies that have changed for teams during this preseason. We'll get into that too coming up a little bit later on. Tyreek Hill has officially challenged the fastest man in the world to a race. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. We'll talk about the Texas deep ball between Quinn Ewers and his new wide receivers. Also, Green Bay has a certain situation going on that I think actually relates to the Longhorns a little bit. We'll get into that too coming up. We'll get into the odds. Odds makers have put out their odds on the first college football coach to be fired next season. We'll see why that is connected to the Longhorns somehow. So we're jam-packed. We got your usual favorites, Raj rant of the day. We'll also get into the topic for the big fat poll today. We got what the facts, what the stats, who said that off the record. We're loaded as usual. Before we do, though, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure this man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
Doing good on a Tuesday morning. It is it is creeping closer to football. It feels like it. And this is how I can tell that we're actually getting closer to football. This is the one thing. I've heard the words Colorado State now multiple times.
Yes.
And that is how I know we're actually getting close, because that was not a conversation pretty much all off season. It was not a conversation up until they're like, wait, we actually have a game. Like, this game is happening. So I can tell we're getting close, because now people start to care a little bit more about the Colorado State game. It's a good sign. It's a good sign that things are coming as we start to worry about games. I have some friends already asking me for betting advice, which I need to write out a disclaimer for. Just being like, I get what I do for a living would make it seem like I'm better at this.
Yes. Yes.
But please.
Trust me, I have the information too, and I was like, I don't do it. That's why I stopped fantasy. I'm like, nah, it seems like I would know all this stuff.
And fantasy's even different. That one explaining to people, you're like, no, I understand if I put together a team of real football, the team would be really good. The thing is, when I'm just guessing who's going to have the most receptions, that's a wildly different exercise than who's the best player.
Oh man!
And so
trust me, I stopped playing years ago. I was like, I can't do it. I got all the research. I will give you guys the research. I'll give you all the info I have. You do with it as you will, just like Patrick. I'll give y'all the info. Y'all do it. I'm not gonna. I can't tell you exactly what to do with it, because that's your money
for entertainment purposes only.
Amen, brother.
Every time when you try to explain, like, hey man, I'll give you what I think. I'm also going to tell you, do not hold me responsible when your wife's mad at you.
I don't want exactly. Think of me like the weatherman. If I'm wrong, just charge it to the game. It's all good.
That's it. Now it's just like, hey man, it's like predicting the weather.
Exactly. I'm gonna be wrong half the time. It's okay. It's all good. I'm just trying to entertain you while I do it. That's why they make the weatherman or weatherwoman attractive. They figure, hey, if they're wrong, you won't care. You'll come back and they look good. You're like, oh, they're pretty damn good looking. I want to look at something pretty in the morning.
I love it. Introduce you to my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod Father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro, brother. Yeah, you're right, though, about the Colorado State thing. That's a great point. I honestly, nobody had mentioned him now. Hell, we're going to talk about him. Actually, we got some audio from the starting quarterback and their star wide receiver. Basically, the best player on the team is their wide receiver, Torrey Horton, and he's going to play in the NFL on Sundays. He'll be drafted. But it was a shock to Colorado State fans, actually, this year. They both of them stayed. It was a shock that
Yeah.
the wide receiver should have been gone. I mean, I believe he's had back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and he's a stud. And everybody kind of naturally was shocked that he stayed there because he probably could have gone. He could have come to Texas probably and been, one of these 3 wide receivers that can be the transfer portal here. Could have played almost any program in the country and gotten on the field, but he decided to stay there. And his quarterback, we know recently was allegedly, at least, was offered at least $600,000 from some rogue booster entity, whatever, at K-State, and he turned it down. And the assumption is, and by the way, their head coach made that accusation, and not just some wild one. Their head coach said that, and if that is the case, I'm assuming that Colorado State couldn't pay that, so he stayed because he is invested in the program.
No, I mean, I know we saw my Gundy come out this week, and he gave his we're not negotiating, stop calling me.
Basically, in season, we don't negotiate new NIL deals in season. I would assume that is the case for everybody.
I would too. I don't
know.
I mean, I could assume that there's certain players that you may want to stay on top of and have a open relationship with in a dialogue. But that's also why teams have general managers.
Yeah, it's like
because then Gundy's not getting the call. Like apparently, I think Gundy just takes all so that's why they have somebody else so they can go, no, you're the one who keeps up with them, so they're happy. And it's not giving them more money, but just listening to them and letting them hear them out. And then I'll deal with the football stuff. I feel like Gundy's like, well, I don't need a general manager because we're not dealing with that. And you're like, yes, you do.
Yeah, you do, but I agree. During the season, we got to be focused on game.
I agree.
Man. We got to focus on game. You want to renegotiate your deal? We'll do that in the spring. We'll do that in the off season. I'm kind of with Gundy on this. Is like, man, don't come to me during the season. This ain't the NFL, right? It is still college. We negotiate a deal during the season. Let's focus on winning. Let's up your value, and then of course we'll start talking about renegotiating. But during the season, once a deal has always been struck, you can't. The NFL don't even do that. Once you strike a deal, they don't come to you. Usually, you don't get a guy coming to you during the season like, "Hey, man, we got to renegotiate my deal." That's rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all, but it's very rare.
But that's the thing is, it's not the players, it's the agents, and there's rules of who can be an agent in the NFL.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, period. And by the way, the agents work for the players too. Like the players in college, they have agents. They don't talk to the coaches. It's an agent thing. It's still a representative. Yeah, they're representatives. My point is that shouldn't happen with anybody.
I agree.
We got to focus on game planning and winning.
But I think in the NIL world, there's a lot of agents that are not necessarily as reputable as maybe some of the other agents.
Totally agree.
And those guys are like, well, I get my 10% of whatever they get, so I don't care about the football. I don't care about anything else. I want my 10%. Because I'm trying to make money. So why don't you give him another 100,000? Because I need another 10 grand.
Yeah, you might have that going on, but I agree. I'm kind of with Sark and
I'm with you. I'm
100%. If your agent is motivated in that way and you guys are working that way, that's fine. But don't come to my program.
I agree 100%.
You got to go somewhere else with all that. Like that means you don't give a damn about what we're trying to do here.
I'm with Gundy on it.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm saying it does exist, but I'm saying I agree with Gundy. I rarely do. I agree with Gundy. I kind of agree with Sark. People said that Sark's losing out on some recruits because he's kind of drawing a hard line in terms of the culture, his NIL culture that he has, and that's why somebody like, oh man, he's losing out to guys at LSU, losing out to guys at Oregon. And that may be true, but I think part of it is that he doesn't want that kind of thing to start happening and become raised. Like, nah, man, if you're into that, then that's just not how we operate. We're not going to do things that way. We're gonna do things. We have a certain process that we're going to operate by. And I agree. You have to kind of draw a line in the sand with the NIL stuff, or it'll become toxic within your program. Just no doubt about it. You gotta have a certain. That's why Sark is basically saying like, we're not going to be the highest bidder every time. It's not going to happen. Because we'll end up with the wrong players if we're the highest bidder every time. We'll end up with the guy that just wants the money, and the agent attached to him that all he wants is the money. If that's the case, you're probably at the wrong place. That's just the obvious. And by the way, there are programs in this country that probably will do that. That will highest bidder every time, and they'll take those guys and negotiate with them during the season. I think you got to stay away from them dudes. You got to do women, whatever.
No, especially that's And if you're at Oklahoma State, or you're not at Oregon, or you're not like the school that's going to pay you the most, it's really weird to try and negotiate during the middle of the season, because it feels like the amount of money you're negotiating for is not worth doing it in the middle of the season.
No,
because it can't be like, oh, I need another 100 grand. It's got to be like, hey man, can I get like another $2,000? Like no,
No, you can go make that.
Yeah.
That's what NIL is for. You can go make that with a third party business. Don't come to me. All right, come into my collective. That's what that. No. You go to it. There's a company out there. I'm sure there's somebody out there that will use you as an endorser for their company. You go make your extra little money on the side during the season, just as long as it don't get in the way of our meetings and your obligations. Yeah. But I'm with you. I'm sure there are some people operating like that, and I think that's why it's tougher than ever to have a constructive, positive culture these days. But I'd make sure my guy during the season. I want the guys who are focused on ball during the season, getting better. Off season, I totally get it. Let's talk about your value. Let's talk about renegotiation, the transfer portal, all that stuff. During the season, man, we got to talk about winning these games and you being productive, right? And as a player, being the best version of yourself. So we can compartmentalize in that way. I think, then you got to get play. I'm not asking people to ignore the money because you got to get yours. But during the season, hey, man, let's go focus on Colorado State. Let's focus on Michigan. Exactly. But no, you're right about that. It's I don't know how the coaches navigate it. You definitely got to get a GM these days. I don't even know why any coach in college now would try to do both. And I believe maybe Mike Gundy is one of those guys trying to do both. That's a Herculean task these days, man. That's a lot to ask. All right, good stuff. We'll get into some Texas football conversation. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, as a matter of fact, but this time talking about practice and talking about his team. We'll get into that here in the first segment. We'll also dive behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll talk a little bit about Colt McCoy and his retirement. He is heading to the broadcast booth. We'll get into that. Malik Murphy was announced as the starting quarterback for the Duke Blue Devils. We'll dive into that story a little bit because a lot of the Longhorn players saw them giving him a shout out during yesterday on social media. Still excited about their former teammate not winning that job. And I believe that now means because Hudson Card won the starting job for Purdue. So essentially, Sark has coached their 3 quarterbacks that will be starting this season that were once quarterbacks under Sark. Pretty impressive. I mean, that's I don't know how often that happens. I'm sure it happens now more than it used to. But that's still impressive, showing his prowess as a quarterback guru and a quarterback nurturer. All right, let's get to the headlines first, and then we'll come back and hear from Steve Sarkisian, talk some Texas football. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros won their series opener with the Red Sox last night 5-4 with the Yanier Diaz walk-off homer in the 9th. Houston's unusually poor fielding on the day with 4 errors cost him early as Yusei Kikuchi allowed 3 runs, but only 1 was earned. The Astros fought back with runs in the 6th and the 8th, and the Astros bullpen held in the final innings. Roniel Blanco will get the start for the Astros tonight, looking for his 10th win of the season. And the Rangers started off their series with the Pirates with a 4-3 win. Corey Seager had 2 big home runs, knocking in all 4 for the Rangers in the game. And Jose Urena was able to pitch 4 shutout innings to get the Rangers to get to Kirby 8 and the 22nd save of the season for Kirby. Cody Bradford takes him out for the Rangers tonight as he continues to improve after his return from injury. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn Headlines. We appreciate those. All right, we'll get into a lot of Texas football conversation here. Got a lot of different angles that I want to dive into, especially with everything that Sark addressed yesterday. But first, let's hear from the head coach, his opening statement from yesterday at his media availability, and talked about the team's kind of state of mind, especially after the injuries, really the tone at practice. Here's Steve Sarkisian, head coach for the Texas football team.
Okay, little recap from Saturday scrimmage. I was pleased in the fact that I really felt like we made strides from one week to the next. And a lot of times that's hard to quantify because you're trying to look at all 3 phases of your team. You're looking at depth. You're not just always looking at frontline starters, but it just felt faster. It felt like we were more efficient. Felt like we were moving at a better pace offensively. Not that it was all just go fast, but even, just getting lined up, shifts in motions. I think that forced more communication from our defense, which we needed. We were trying to emphasize there. I thought on special teams, we were playing faster. We're starting to realize kind of who are going to be some of our key components on special teams as well. And so that was a real positive. And so coming out of that, as we head into this week, we kind of have what we call a mock game on Saturday where we kind of work all of our substitutions and situations that might come up Saturday. So we treat this week like a game week. And although we haven't started school, all of our timing and practices and meeting times will be exactly as if we were in class, so that we can start creating some of those habits on their daily routine and what they need to do to handle their preparation from a football standpoint, but still managing their personal lives. So we're working on that. And then more importantly than that, like I just touched on with the team, like we really got to drill down on the little things this week, right? Everybody's got the little things, the details at their position to really wire into. And at that point, when they do that's how they earn the trust of us, that we can count on them to do the big things when the games come around. So I've been impressed with this team. I love, like I said, just the camaraderie of this group. They're very connected. They work well together. They hold each other accountable. And that was no different Saturday. And so the one thing I'll touch on too, I thought the offense took care of the ball much better Saturday. Coming out of that first scrimmage, the ball was loose. I think we had about 5 turnovers. This past Saturday, we had 1. And it was another great red zone turnover that the defense now 2 weeks in a row has been able to create. So that's good for them too. So again, I'm trying to look at it from a 10,000 foot view and not through a straw, just as what does the offense do, but as a team. And I've been impressed with where we're at.
Yeah. 2 things I said. I talked about how close the team was, considering all the new acquisitions, if you will, via the transfer portal. That's a good sign. And that the offense now seems like they're a little bit more buttoned up. At least the reports were in that first scrimmage, they were a little bit sloppy. Sark has a lot of moving parts in his offense, pre-snap motions and shifts. So guys have to alignment and assignment sound is important. And it sounds like they weren't, in addition to the turnovers. All right. So them being careless with the football, sounds like they were not very sharp. Sounds like they were kind of sloppy. They weren't dialed in. And Sark wants to see them be a little bit more buttoned up, more disciplined, and attention to the details. And he talked about that. I think that's important for his offense specifically, with all the moving parts and then all the new faces with the moving parts. That's going to be key for the Longhorns, at least early on in the season. In terms of who's going to play, because right, if you can't be assignment and alignment sound, Sark can't put you out there. Speaking of that trust factor that he brought up too. The health of the team, I think, for Longhorn fans is one of the main stresses, points of anxiety, if you will, especially after the injury to CJ Baxter and Christian Clark. Here's Sark talking about the overall health of the team going forward.
Yeah, we're great health-wise, quite frankly. Credit to Coach Becton and his staff for the work that they did this summer. Credit to our training staff. A lot of the guys, we had a couple guys come in a little limited, and everybody's back working. And at this juncture of training camp, again, we've had a couple tough injuries, season-ending injuries that you have to deal with, but we're really not missing, many players at all that are kind of out. We're making some business decisions as a staff on what we need to do. And a guy like Jake Majors, who's been here for 15 years and started about 100 games, I don't know if he necessarily needs that scrimmage, but I needed some of those other centers to get some work. And so you make those types of decisions on what you think is in the best interest of your team long run. And I likened it a little bit too. It's probably not a whole lot different from NFL preseason football. There's a reason the starters, maybe get a couple series or maybe a half about that third preseason game, but they're getting them ready for showtime. And so we're having to look at it the same way.
There you go. Start talking about looking at the same way as the NFL, because the season is going to be so much longer. And specifically that's the case with the running backs. We learned from some of the reports from the scrimmage this past weekend that you had 2 running backs, Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner. They were in green jerseys, non-contact jerseys. So he's already starting to protect those guys, put a little halo around them, just like the QBs, just because you only got 3 scholarship running backs at this point. Here is Sark when he's talking about the approach to safeguarding the running back position.
No, they're not no contact. They're definitely thud, and we need them to get thudded. We're trying to minimize them going to the ground, and that would be not a whole lot different than we normally would be. somebody reminded me of a couple backs I've had in the past. They were at truly no contact all season long when you have one guy. And we're fortunate we've got 3 really good players back there right now. So they're definitely still thud. They need to get hit. They need the strip attempts. They need the punch out opportunities by the defense as they learn to take care of the ball. But again, we really don't want them going to the ground for some, those are unnecessary hits and falls they have to take. So, but again, it's still our practices are still very physical that way.
Yeah, Mac was big on that. Mac never wanted guys on the ground in practice. Even when we were in full pads, Mac would yell at guys for going to the ground. You get yelled at just for going on because the thought process that most of the injuries happen on the ground. I don't know if that's true or not. That most of the injuries happen when you're taking guys to the ground and getting to the ground. So Mac was big on thudding up, getting in the right place, pad level, helmet in the right place. And then once you got, a guy kind of wrapped up, then you would let him go. So either way, I mean, I think that was kind of Mac's way of safeguarding. But, Sark says you got to get the thud in. And that's important. It really could affect the defense, too, because the defense needs to see an accurate simulation of a running back going full speed, then getting your body ready for the contact and the physicality. And then, how to thud a guy and put your helmet in the right place, wrap them up, take them to the ground. So there is a domino effect, if you will, that, this will potentially have a negative effect on the defense and then their ability to track the football, angles to the football, to tackle. And tackling has been something that the Texas defense has really wanted to prioritize this offseason. I heard Tapp talking about it, that the yards after the catch and yards after contact has really been their emphasis because they believe that's what they gave up a lot last year. They gave up a lot of yak yards, run after the catch yards. Here is Sark talking about tackling overall as a team.
Yeah, no, we tackle a lot. All of our team run sessions have been live, and up until the last kind of half of the last portion of last week. So we tackle a fair amount. We work on tackling a ton. I felt like there was a few opportunities in the scrimmage Saturday where we gave up some leaky yardage on some tackles that I would have liked us to make a little bit cleaner. And that is different for a backer because a lot of times on like what's called a check down to a running back, maybe his back is turned. And when he turns and faces you up, it's different than when somebody's looking at you from a distance and you're making that tackle. But when his back's turned, he turns, and we've got to be better at bringing our feet and wrapping up there. But again, that's not uncommon at this juncture. We just got to continue to work that aspect of our tackling. But for the most part, I didn't see just blatant, really poor tackling. I did see a high level of physicality, especially from some guys that haven't shown it in years past that are starting to grow into our style of play.
All right. Speaking of tackling, I got this stat from Hook'em Headlines. If you go look at yards after the catch per reception, yards after the catch overall, yards after the catch allowed per game, and yards after the catch per reception allowed, that number has actually increased for this Texas defense each of the last 3 years. It went from 4.7 yards after the catch per reception allowed to 5.5 last year, according to these stats. And your yards after the catch per game allowed total also has increased from 100 to 122, according to these stats. That's a concern. And you would see why, the players have talked about basically being able to neutralize the yak yards. And if they can decrease the yak yards overall, it'll lead to a more efficient, more effective defense because you'll probably have fewer conversions overall. That'll mean fewer explosive plays, if you will, and ultimately GOTF, get off the field on defense. All right, let's jump to offense really quickly. Let's hear from Sark talking about his quarterback. Remember, every time Sark talks about the growth of his QB, he often points to leadership. Leadership being, one of the two kind of intangible qualities Sark says he looks for in a quarterback. Leadership, he looks for competitiveness, right? He wants that competitive sickness in a quarterback. Here is Sark talking about the leadership of his QB.
I just think one thing was interesting. I I want to say it was either Thursday or Friday last week. We got off the practice field. It was probably Thursday. And I'd gotten a text from Quinn, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so after practice. He said, "Hey, Coach, we had a team meeting the next day, I think at 2:45 or something." He said, "Coach, do you mind if we have a players only meeting at 2:35?" And I had never got that from Quinn, right? That in years past, that might have been Jordan or Jalen Ford or one of those guys. But for Quinn to be the guy that was calling a players only meeting, I thought in that moment already, for me, right, differently than maybe with the players, that this guy is really stepping up and saying, "Hey, I want to have this meeting. I want to talk about 2 or 3 things with the guys to make sure that we're really dialed in." And so I know that his rapport with his teammates is tremendous right now. I know they look up to him with very high regard. They know the way he works and goes about his business, but yet he's definitely more vocal. I mean, I can see that on the field as I'm out there, even in scrimmages, picking guys up, talking to linemen, letting a pass rusher know that was a nice pass rush, things of that nature. He's just much more engaged. But on the flip side, for me as the head coach, the fact that he's calling that meeting, that's different. That hasn't happened the past couple of years.
All right, there you go. So Quinn stepping it up, calling meetings with guys, and I think what I'm hearing is that he is now, he's embracing the role of leader. I think last year he knew he had to be a leader, so I think it was, I don't know if he considered it a burden, but it was definitely not something that was natural to him. So something that he had to acclimate to and work on those leadership skills. I think now that he understands, he's watched leaders in front of him. He's been now the quarterback at Texas for a while. Now I think from what I'm hearing, he's embracing the role of leader, instead of something that may have been a burden to him prior to that. So it's Quinn's team. There's no doubt about it. And I think that's what Sark is saying too. All right, we'll get to some Texas conversation. We go behind the burnt orange curtain. I want to start talking about the wide receivers, because there's a lot of discussion about who's going to be in that circle of trust and what's going to be that rotation, what's it going to look like. But in addition to that, when we talk wide receiver, also I'll jump to an NFL team that I think has a very similar conundrum to the Longhorns about the wide receiver position. We'll do that. And also we'll hear from 2 Colorado State players. Talked about this earlier. The quarterback Nicolosi and their star wide receiver Torrey Horton, as to why they stayed at Colorado State. As my man Patrick mentioned, it's about time for us to start talking about Colorado State just a little bit more. Time for you to get to know your upcoming opponent. We'll start doing that a little bit as well when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation and go behind the burnt orange curtain. All right, so we'll get back to the Sark audio here in just a second because I want to hear Sark's take about the wide receivers, also the Silas Bowden growth of Anthony Hill, and talking about Colorado State, their upcoming opponent. But speaking of Colorado State, and shout out to my man Patrick because he pulled this audio. Two players that you have to really know, the names you need to know. All right. Braden Fowler Nicolosi. And I believe, I'm not mistaken, he might be a Texas kid too. But he's the quarterback. All right. He's a quarterback for them. First year as a starter last year. And I think it's his third off season on campus. But his first year as a starter was last season and had somewhat of a breakout campaign for a young quarterback. And part of that was because of his wide receiving core. By the way, they run the air raid. As a matter of fact, they actually have they got one of the original members from that air raid coaching tree, which we'll get into in just a second. But they do run a version of the air raid offense. But getting back to the quarterback, Braden Fowler Nicolosi, and the wide receiver Torrey Horton. That's the name to know. He's a speed demon, legit NFL guy. 500 and he had 575 yards after the catch last season. That was the 11th most in college football. Actually tied Malik Neighbors for the fastest top speed of any receiver in college football, running a route last year, according to Pro Football Focus. They had him at 23 miles per hour. Average top speed, nearly 22 miles per hour. That was the fourth best in college football. So the metrics really like him. 23 forced missed tackles. Usually lines up not necessarily a great deep threat, but really one of the kind of top receivers overall in terms of productivity in college football. You go look at his last couple of years. I mean, he's been a 1,000-yard receiver for the last couple of years. So he's one of the guys that a lot of people are surprised that he stayed at Colorado State because he got a lot of allegedly got a lot of offers via the transfer portal to leave, and a lot of offers, a lot of bags. All right, offers of straight cash homie to leave, and he stayed at Colorado State, meaning they might have something special going on. Jay Norvell mentioned this past offseason that the quarterback Nicolosi allegedly was offered as much upwards of $600,000 to leave Colorado State and go to K-State, and he decides to stay. Well, in this interview with both of them, they're asked about that. They're asked about it, and in this interview, the report claims that both were offered at least $600,000. Not just Nicolosi, the quarterback, but the wide receiver was too. And both were offered that to leave. Both decided to stay. Here are these players, Nicolosi, the quarterback, and Torrey Horton, the wide receiver, saying why they decided to pass on the straight cash homie and stay at Colorado State.
It's how I was raised. I didn't come here to make money. I came here to win games and play ball for the Rams. So I think if we play ball here, we do our job, we do what we're supposed to, we win championships, go to the playoff, shock the world, I think the money will come eventually. My job in college isn't to sit here and try to make as much money as I can. I know the new landscape is exciting for a lot of people. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but at the end of the day, I'm a 20-year-old kid with higher goals in life than to make money in college. And so as much of a blessing as that would be and set myself up for a long time, I think if I do my job here and we get it done and perform like how we know we're supposed to, I think there's several people on this team that will be taken care of for life after college.
I kind of look at it as you want to go somewhere where you want to be and where you love and where you enjoy growing and having that experience of becoming the man that you want to be. And, the money in college is nice, of course, with the new NIL stuff, but that's not my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is not NIL in college; it's the next level. And the coaching here and just the play style that works with us too is no reason for me to go to another college to start over or to try to go into a system that I'm not really aware of. I know what the system is here, and I know how the coaching staff is here, and their ultimate goal of us being better men than just football players, and that's how they want us to leave college. And just having those kind of coaches here to have that amount of passion on the game, but also your mental and life, it goes a long way.
All right. The last one was Torrey Horton. The first one was the quarterback. And they, like I said, if it's indeed true, and that report claims that it is true, really impressive. The culture they got there. The guys are. We started the show talking about this, Patrick. We literally started the show talking about how do you have a constructive, positive culture in the NIL transfer portal era and how tough it is. And I'll give Jay Norvell some credit. And not saying, hell, some people would say the guys made a bad decision by passing up on $600,000.
I would say that. I would say that. They're a 5-win team last year. I would say that.
So you don't think you would not advise
decision. I think when they're 30 years old and they have never made close to $600,000, and maybe one of them will go to the NFL. The quarterback game, and when he's never made close to $600,000, he's gonna be like, I really should have taken that money. Jay Norvell really sold me a bill of goods that wasn't true when we were under a 500 team and didn't even play in a bowl game. But I also say there's lies in this, and I'm not saying who knows him and who told him, but I do not believe that both of them got offered $600,000 and turned it down. So I think there's other parts of it where I don't know if the money was not really was a booster or a donor, or if it was somebody who doesn't have the pull to be able to say that or whatever it is.
That's fair.
There's a lot in this that doesn't pass the sniff test. And it seems that you have a head coach who is extremely anti-money. He made the whole scene with Deion Sanders last year.
He did.
And he's very much in this. And then a storyline that perfectly fits his narrative somehow pops up, and it's the only school saying it in all of college football. Now, there's other people saying there's tampering. There's other people that are saying things, but no one else walks out and goes, no, my players turned down over $1 million to stay here. It just doesn't quite pass the sniff test to me, and maybe it's all true and I'm crazy, but they're a 5-win team last year.
I was trying to give the coach some props.
He's got it. I
agree with you. I money wise, I don't know if it was the right decision.
I'm very big on doing the best things for the students and not for the coach, and I'm not sure that's necessarily the case in this. And maybe it is. If they win 10 games this season and they look great, and both those guys get drafted, and it's a great, then I'm wrong, and Jay Norvell was right. If they are an under 500 team and the quarterback doesn't get drafted and all of that, and they turn down all that money, then Jay Norvell was wrong.
But I will say this: it's not on Jay Norvell. Jay Norvell this is a free market. Jay Norvell made his pitch, and whatever some K-State rogue, whatever guy made their pitch, whatever it was, and the young man he chose Colorado State. So I wouldn't put anything on Jay Norvell. Jay Norvell's doing his job. His pitch is, hey man, you should be here. This is so those young men chose this. So if anything, it's their representative that should be at fault, and Millie who's advising them. If that's parents or whatever, they should be like, son, it's $600,000. Just take that money. You can always go back somewhere else and play, but you got to take the risk. So you're right about that. I don't know if it was the right business decision, but for him to be able to, if it is true that they got $600,000, for those guys to be motivated to stay means at least there's something there that they enjoy about playing. Because you're right, it ain't the wins. It's something else there.
There's probably an ounce of truth to everything that they're saying. I just don't, the whole thing put together in the way it is, and the lack of 20 other teams coming out and going, oh yeah, that's also, this guy got offered $500,000 and this guy got offered $700,000, and the lack of that is where you say, so Colorado State was a team that everyone's like, let's ruin this team and we'll get their 2 best players. And so that there is this stuff happening, and players are going to go and take it. It is.
Yeah.
It is happening. We know that poaching's happening because we hear about it all the time. We know that tampering's happening. We hear about it all the time. The numbers and the specifics and everything about this just seems weird in the way it's presented. But hey, look, good for them. They're going to go out there. The part in it where you completely lost me was make the playoffs, shock the world. That was when I was like, if that's what you came back for, then
I don't know.
You should
that was probably part of the sales pitch. That was probably part of the sales pitch, but it's on you to, if you want to fall for the sales pitch, that's part of the free market. Like, hey, if you let some used car salesman sell you some terrible broke down piece of blank and you fell for it, that's part of the free market too. It is. Like, you got to do your research. So if he came back because he JW convinced him, hey man, we're gonna shock the world and compete for the playoff. Then I gotta tell you, like I said, you should have taken that back to your advisors and went, is this something realistic, guys? And they're like, no, you got no shot. You can make a bowl game. That's probably as best you could do. I will say this though about the number that was thrown out there, the market range, the NIL market range for a transfer quarterback these days is $500,000 to $800,000.
Yeah,
I didn't make that up. That
No,
comes from
I got you.
247 Sports. And if you go look at the numbers from Open Doors about what a quarterback is worth today, basically at a top 25 school. So Colorado State ain't top 25, but they got 648,000. So I don't know if K-State actually just looked at those numbers and said, hey, we'll offer this, or if the young man and his representatives looked at that number and went, let's just throw out there that somebody offered us that. That seems to be the average. I'm not, but that is around the average.
And look, and I can throw out there, this is one of the biggest problems with the transfer portal, with NIL, with everything that's happening right now, is that there is people that are not involved with the program who are trying to make wild promises and not even talking to the coaches and the staff if they want these players, because they basically want 20 guys to hop into the portal, and then their coach can take the pick and they'll pay for the best one. And it really doesn't matter about, they're not caring about the kids either. So that is a problem that happens plenty, because we see kids hop in the portal and believe that they're worth something and then basically get told that offer is off the table. So it may have been that they were lied to. I'm not saying that they're the liar. I'm saying somewhere in this whole story, there's a liar, and I don't know where it is, but somewhere in there's a lie. So
welcome to capitalism.
Exactly.
Welcome to the free market.
But that's
somewhere in there, somebody's getting over on somebody.
Exactly.
Somebody, that is literally capitalism in a nutshell. Somewhere, somebody is hustling somebody. We just don't know where it is. You know you get, and you ever know you're getting hustled and just can't figure out how?
Yeah.
You're like, I know I'm getting hustled here. I'm getting hustled. How? I'm getting hustled. I know I'm getting.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on now. So I get it. You're right about that.
This feels like, we go back to used car. This feels like when a guy comes up and they go, well, why would I buy your car for 10 grand? That guy offered to sell me a Camaro for 2. And you're like, well, then why didn't you buy it? Like, well, I mean, it was broken down and half on fire. You're like, well, then don't tell me you offered one for 2. So I got offered 600 grand. I was like, was it a real offer? No, but I got offered it.
But I got offered. Who offered it? I'm not sure, but I got offered. No, I'm with you. There's a lot of stuff out here that nobody can confirm about it. But I will say, and I said this about NIL years ago, it is taking the route that capitalism has taken. I mean, it's because it is the free market, and it was a great cause at one point. But in capitalism, every great cause, every one of them, they begin as a movement with genuine. I think people have an authentic empathy, and people are trying to do good. But then it becomes a business, and once it becomes a business, that's it, guys. Then it will degenerate into a racket. That's just the way it happens, because you have too many people, like the Patrick is mentioning. They're hustling and they're just trying to get their comeuppance. And that's what happened. And that's what's happening in NIL now. NIL is at that point. It's at the racket phase of it. But I think once you get federal legislation, then you'll get out of that racket phase. Or with the new framework, right? We still don't even know how it's going to look. And we're close to the season. And the new framework for the future of college football had not been established. Like, we don't have any confirmed details about what it's going to look like, salary cap, revenue sharing.
They talked to Sark.
We still really don't know.
They asked Sark about how are you recruiting without knowing what your roster limits are. And he's like, we kind of have to do everything. You just have to be prepared for whatever it is. But we're out there figuring out, and we're talking to, and again, you're worried about what the young men are having to deal with. And you say, well, I'm offering this many, but we don't know if we have that many spots anymore. We may not have, or we may have extras, but then we don't know where walk-ons are going to be, and I can't tell someone's going to be there. And I don't know if I have to tell people they're not going to be on the team next year because we don't have those walk-on spots anymore. It is. There's a lot going on in the landscape. I just thought and really the biggest thing of all that whole Colorado State thing was when we shocked the world. I was like, come on, man.
Hopefully it's not against Texas. Let's hear from Sark talking about Colorado State actually, and Texas' upcoming opponent. Everybody's getting in that state of mind. Start focusing on game week. Here is Sark talking about their week 1 opponent.
I have a feeling it might have been before then. But Coach Norvell's a great coach. I've known him a long time. Got a ton of respect for him. He's been around some great coaches throughout his career as well. You know, they've evolved. You know, I was talking about him earlier. You know, he was a West Coast guy for a long time. You know, Bill Callahan, that whole crew, and they've evolved obviously to more of an air raid approach, and they can throw it around. The quarterback's very talented, the receiver's very talented, but they run the ball probably a little more than people would think in that style of offense. I think they're very sound defensively. You know, this is not, you know, they're not some sort of gimmick defense. They play sound, hard-nosed football. They're a very good team. They've gotten better. You know, they continue to improve, and we know we're going to get their best shot. And so we'll get going on them when time's ready.
All right, so let's start talking about Colorado State, their upcoming opponent. Like I said, the names you need to know. We'll obviously get into this in much more detail. Torrey Horton, he is the world-class kind of wide receiver they have, 1,000-yard receiver in back-to-back years. And then there's Braden Fowler Nicolosi, who I think is from Alito, if I'm not mistaken, too. So he's got some Texas ties. And also the air raid that coach is referencing, Hal Mummy's son, Matt Mummy, is the offensive coordinator for them. And Hal Mummy was one of the original creators of the air raid offense. Okay, you referenced a cut, Patrick, that I think we should play. I think it actually is pretty good, and I want to hear it too. Start talking about the uncertainty of the future framework of college football, roster limits, revenue sharing. Well, here he's talking about recruiting, as you pointed out, without knowing how many players he's going to have in terms of the roster limits. Here is Steve Sarkisian.
Well, it's under discussion in our building because, you know, again, as you look at the potential numbers and what they look like, we still have a current roster of players on our team now as well. And, you know, I was always a proponent from day one that I didn't want walk-ons to go away. I think they serve a lot of value in your locker room and on your team. And so, you know, what does that number look like for us if in fact it does settle and it's a hard, fast 105? Does that mean we have to have 105 scholarship kids, or can we have 90 or 95 and still have a space and a place for walk-on types or even partial scholarships? So there's a lot of things that are unknown for us still. But yeah, does it allot us maybe a few more numbers, and does it always have to be a high school kid, or maybe those are portal spots that we can look into and we can just focus on the 25 high school kids? So there's a lot of ways of doing it. You know, we're trying to be really kind of diligent in our approach of just looking at every angle. We're really trying to tap into a lot of guys in the NFL and how they manage it that way, to see what's best for us. And I'm sure everybody's going to do it a little bit differently, and we just want to make sure we do what's best for us.
All right, there you go, Sark. And I think that's why Sark hired a GM, and why more teams around the league are around college football hiring GMs, because it's just way too much on the plate of a head coach. All right, we come back. We'll get into the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and we'll dive into the musically themed day of the week right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn.
Back on the Rodcast here on a Tuesday, and that means it's a top of the charts Tuesday where I'll play music for you all show long. That was number one this day in history. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line's open 512-447-3776, and we will get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, I'm going to play you some more Sark sound because we're going to get back into some Texas football talk, and there is a conversation in this that I thought was interesting, knowing how Sark runs about the wide receiver room. And he was asked about that wide receiver rotation and the circle of trust, basically, that Rod and I have talked about a lot, of how many players will get run at wide receiver for Texas. Here's Sark talking about the wide receiver rotation, about how many players does he have that he believes can be played wide receiver for Texas this season.
Yeah, it's a tough deal, man. As I said, we have 6 guys that I feel very comfortable with playing in the games, and I would say coming out of Saturday, I would say 7. Ryan Niblett has really come on here in the last week and a half, and have been very impressed with him, not only offensively but also on special teams. And so that's a credit to him. I told him that today on the field. I was really proud of him because he just continued to work. So we're very comfortable that way. I think what we've found out coming out of Saturday is the right combination of guys on the field, who's your speed guys and who's good at doing what. And as a play caller, understanding who you want on the field for what. So it's shifting back maybe to a little bit more of that NFL mentality of putting guys in very specific spots rather than just 3 guys out there the whole time. So it's a shift and a change, and that's okay. But I think it's the right combination of players on the field is probably more important than who's the top 3. And I think that's something that myself, Coach Jackson, Coach Milwee, we're working on trying to get that right mix of guys at the right time on the field.
Are you deep enough to sub 3 at a time?
Easily. Yeah, we could very easily do that.
So Sark talking about 7 wide receivers that he now feels are in his circle of trust, that he could substitute 3 wide receivers at a time, doing basically complete shifts of wide receivers between play to play. It's a complete shift from what we've seen in Sark in his first 3 seasons at Texas. So today's poll question for you is, how many Texas wide receivers will have 10 plus receptions this season? We can look at the numbers. Last year, there was 3 wide receivers. You had 2 tight ends and 3 running backs with that, but 3 wide receivers. 2022, 2 wide receivers. You had a tight end and 3 running backs that had it. And in 2021, 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end and 2 running backs. But we're only looking at wide receivers right now. So 3 in 2023, 2 in 2022, and 4 in 2021 that had double-digit receptions. It's questionable now because you say 7 is impossible. Almost impossible to get 7 guys in the wide receiver room, especially when you now consider, you say at least 2 of your backs will probably get it, and you have 3 tight ends who could possibly get it. That's a lot of players to share the ball around, even if you're going to be a pass-heavy team. That is just too many players to get double-digit receptions. That's just not how pretty much anything works, because if you do that, that means Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook or those guys are getting 15 receptions. And that I don't think would make them very happy either. So, I would say your minimum you're looking at is 3. 3 guys will have double-digit receptions for Texas this season. And then the question is, how many more than that?
I don't believe Sark. Like I love him.
I'm with you.
This is Sark. I'll tell you what this is. This is Sark not wanting his wide receiver room to become dejected and for them to lose focus. He wants them to feel all like they're invested, because basically we've pretty much talked about the wide receivers, and we have decided, and they're hearing this conversation on social media, we have decided that it's only 5 to 6 guys in that can contend to get on the field, and everybody else pretty much in that room needs to give up and just focus on the field.
Yeah.
And Sark doesn't want that, so now he's like, oh, another guy, penetrate the circle of trust, Ryan Niblett. See, keep on working, and then you also can get into the circle of trust. We'll have 12 receivers in the circle of trust. Everybody can be in the circle of trust. You get a target. You get a target. You get a target. It's like, no, sorry, no. those are the receivers. And I'm just saying, I'm not getting on him. He got to do this as a coach. But as an analyst looking at it, trust me, I know you're not going. You just talked about it. There's no way you can have that many damn.
No.
It ain't a circle of trust anymore. Your damn circle's too big. All right, somebody you can't trust that many damn people. Okay, so the circle of trust too big. You no longer can call it a circle of trust when you have 7 receivers in it. So I think it's just start trying to make sure other receivers are still invested and they're still trying to compete for target share. They're trying to compete to get on the field. So when you put them on special teams, they won't have a bad attitude because they're receivers. They're divas. They all want the ball. They all want to believe they're the guy, and they all want to believe there can be receiver one. And he knows that can become an issue with commitment and investment in that room overall. So let me give some hope to these guys. Hey, Ryan Niblett's now in the circle of trust. It's at 7. You could be number 8. You could be number 9. Nope, no chance. But I get it. You do what you got to do, sorry.
Yeah.
But no. I don't have to believe it.
So you don't believe it.
To.
So do you? But do you believe that they will have more than 3 receivers with double-digit receptions this season, or the wide receivers will still?
That I do believe.
Yeah,
I believe you'll have more than 3. Yes, I do believe the circle of trust will be larger than ever before. But believe it now, it's going to be at 7 guys.
I don't believe it'll be
7.
So
there's no college football team or an NFL team that has a circle of trust that large. But you about to have a 7 wide receiver rotation?
No, 7 wide receiver, 3 running back, 3 tight ends.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
13.
So everybody gets 8 catches all year.
8
Like,
catches.
what are we doing?
It does pose a question though. If you're saying there's 7 in, is there also a fact that there's no top of this right now? And you go, the top is just not like before. We knew Xavier Worthy was a dude, and then AD Mitchell came in, and AD Mitchell was a dude, and Jay Witt's going to get his. So you went, okay, well those guys are clearly pushing away from it, whereas Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook, the guys that you were expecting to push further away from it, haven't separated themselves from the other guys where those two were supposed to be separating themselves this offseason.
Yeah, no, I think that's it's a valid conversation to have. And matter of fact, this is something we'll get into next segment because there's an NFL team that has the very same issue, and their fan base sounds eerily similar to Longhorns Longhorn fans when they discuss the wide receiver position. And I want to talk about that on the other side because I think it's a perfect segue from what man Patrick brought up here for the topic for the big fat poll today. So I do think the circle of trust will be larger than ever before. So I think you'll have, 3 guys last year with at least 10 catches. I think you'll have 4 receivers,
yes,
wide receivers.
Yes.
I think you'll have 4 of those guys with at least 10 catches this season. But we shall see. And now Sark is saying, that it's about the right combination of guys on the field. What do you mean by that? I think we got to get into that too.
Yep.
It's about the right combination, not necessarily about the best 3 receivers, but the right combination of receivers. I think he's talking about roles that guys are going to play in that offense, different roles they're going to play. And I think that matters for him. And I think that those roles may change game to game. Depending on the role the receivers are going to play versus Michigan is going to be very different than the roles that the receivers are going to play when they open up SEC play against Mississippi State or whatever.
Yeah,
this is going to be very different. All right, so I want to get into that's a good conversation. All right, we'll do that on the other side next segment, and I'll play some audio from that head coach who may offer some insight into how Texas may approach the wide receiver position because it's so deep. 7 wide receiver circle of trust. Ooh. Sorry, man, look at that. He's such a trusting head coach. He just trusts all his receivers, trust all of them. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Beavers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday, one of my favorite musically themed days of the week, courtesy of my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, always doing a great job with the musically themed days of the week. He also does a great job with the conversation starters. I always going to make you think with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and he's done it again. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
How many Texas wide receivers will have 10 plus receptions this season?
Yeah. What you starting with? What's going to be the first choice?
Two. I went with two. I went 2 to 5.
Okay.
I went 2 to 5. Right. I think 6 is out of the question, really. And again, and we got to remember, we're talking about just wide receivers. So we say there's 3 possible tight ends who could be in it. There was 2 last year in Gunnar Helm and JT Sanders, but now Amari Niblack, Gunnar Helm, and Juan Davis are all in that conversation.
Yeah, we just talking about wideouts right now.
Yeah, and then you also put in you also have Blue and you have Wisner that are probably pretty heavily in, but they're most likely going to both have them. Yeah, and then Gibson possibly could be added into that conversation as well. So if you say there's a possibility of 6 other people getting them, then how many actual wide receivers? Again, last season, Quinn did pretty well. He had 8 different players in total that had double-digit receptions, but only 3 of those were wide receivers.
Yeah. And the wide receiving rotation was so well defined by that time, right? You already knew, because those guys had been in the system. AD Mitchell not. AD Mitchell kind of came in, but AD Mitchell had been in so many big games, had scored in college football playoff games. I mean, he was just kind of a big game receiver. So he came in and was a really perfect fit, perfectly compatible, exactly what that passing game needed, because they needed a man beater. Because whoever was opposite Xavier Worthy was going to just get a lot of man coverage because everybody was focused on X-Men. So, yeah, that group had, for the most part, Jay Witt and Xavier Worthy that grown up in that system and knew it really well. This time it's not so defined. Even Jay Cook and Jonte Cook and DeAndre Moore, they've been in the system the longest, have the best chemistry with Quinn, but they don't have any real skins on the wall. They hadn't done it in a game, really.
Yeah.
We just seen flashes from those guys, but guys like Silas Bolden, guys like Matthew Golden, guys like Isaiah Bond, not in this system, but in other systems around the country, have played in big games. And hell, Matthew Golden had 2 touchdowns versus Texas, big games, and had big performances.
Yes.
So it is. And then you got Ryan Wingo, who's physically just maybe the most gifted of all of those guys, just in terms of the physical traits that he's given. It is. And now we got Ryan Niblett to worry about. Ryan Niblett has earned the circle of trust of Sark potentially, which he does. Nothing against Ryan Niblett.
He does in the cut also say he's doing really well on special teams. Like he also does.
Okay, there you go. See, because I think that's what I think he wants to incentivize those other wide receivers. Like, hey, you can still crack this.
Look, and
rotation.
you're going to get receptions in the season. We're going to put you in, especially if we get up enough. We'll let you get some play. Like you'll be in and doing it. You may not be in the first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
But there's several players who got receptions over the last few years, just not double digit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think it's this wide receiver rotation is going to be really interesting. And I'll get into an NFL example of it that I also think I've heard on social media, seen on social media, their fans having a very similar conversation about their wide receiving core and who's going to step up. And it leads to, I think, a football conversation that maybe we're starting to evolve our thinking about the wide receiver position overall and the productivity of it. We shall see. Or maybe you're just getting different philosophies. And certainly this coach has one. So we'll dive into that. We'll also get into Rod's rant of the day. I'll talk about I've got a couple of things that I want to get into. We haven't discussed Malik Murphy becoming announced as a starter. I want to get into that, and Colt McCoy's official retirement. So we'll dive into those topics. Tyreek Hill has challenged Noah Lyles, the 100-meter champion at the Olympics. This is an official challenge, actually. So we'll dive into that, and we'll discuss some of the noticeable trends already, things that are starting to reveal themselves in the preseason. You can't tell a lot, but you can tell a little. So we'll get into that, especially about some of the the division foes for the Cowboys. We'll also talk about Xavier Worthy. I went back and watched his snaps, all of the targets that he had and the snaps that he had with Kansas City. Man, the Xavier Worthy stock, I'm telling you guys, buy it. If you're a fantasy guy or whatever, and you're thinking, I wonder if I should get Xavier Worthy, do it. Do it. I'll give you some proof why you should do it. Do it. Yeah, I think Andy Reid's got a new toy, and he wants to play with it. He is. I mean, he didn't want to totally like reveal all of the different ways that he was going to scheme up Xavier Worthy. But even in the preseason alone, if that is any indicator or preview as to how much of a muse and an inspiration Xavier Worthy and his speed are going to be for Andy Reid, man, he's about to go into the lab and start dialing up all kind of crazy stuff for Xavier Worthy. Because you're in the preseason, you're supposed to be vanilla. You're supposed to show people in the preseason stuff like, oh man, that's routine stuff. That's stuff we're gonna do all the time. And he's already doing freaky stuff with Xavier Worthy that I saw. He's already doing. I'm like, you doing that in the preseason? What the hell are you gonna do during the season? If you're already doing behind the back passes in the preseason, what are you gonna do during the regular season? These Kansas City Chiefs are feeling themselves right now, and I understand why. The wide receiving core is fantastic.
You know why Andy Reid really likes Xavier Worthy?
Why?
Lots of leftovers.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, because you're gonna see it. He's gonna be running the same thing over and over again. Boom, boom. All right, now it's good. So we'll get into that. We got a lot of stuff we're going to dive into, but first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros won their series opener with the Red Sox last night 5-4 with the Yanier Diaz walk-off homer in the ninth. Houston's unusually poor fielding on the day with 4 errors cost him as Yusei Kikuchi allowed 3 runs, but only 1 was earned. The Astros fought back with runs in 6 in the 8th, and the Astros bullpen held in the final innings to allow the walk-off homer. Roniel Blanco will get the start for the Astros tonight, looking for his 10th win of the season. And the Rangers started off their series with the Pirates with a 4-3 win. Corey Seager had 2 big home runs, knocking in all 4 for the Rangers in the game. And Jose Urena was able to pitch 4 shutout innings to get to Kirby Yates and his 22nd save of the season. Cody Bradford takes the mound for the Rangers tonight as he continues to improve after his return from injury. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. All right, let's get back to that conversation we're having about the wide receivers. You played the cut from Steve Sarkisian when he was asked about the wide receiver position, and I thought it was compelling on a lot of levels. As a matter of fact, can we just replay it? Cut 5, I believe it is, but the wide receiver rotation, because it's good. There's a lot of meat on that bone, and he talks about not just having the best 3 start the game, but the right combination of receivers start the game. And yes, this is the one where he gives Ryan Niblett a lot of props. Here's Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, it's a tough deal, man. As I said, we have 6 guys that I feel very comfortable with playing in the games, and I would say coming out of Saturday, I would say 7. Ryan Niblett has really come on here in the last week and a half, and have been very impressed with him, not only offensively but also on special teams. And so that's a credit to him. I told him that today on the field. I was really proud of him because he just continued to work. So we're very comfortable that way. I think what we've found out coming out of Saturday is the right combination of guys on the field, who's your speed guys and who's good at doing what. And as a play caller, understanding who you want on the field for what. So it's shifting back maybe to a little bit more of that NFL mentality of putting guys in very specific spots rather than just 3 guys out there the whole time. So it's a shift and a change, and that's okay. But I think it's the right combination of players on the field is probably more important than who's the top 3. And I think that's something that myself, Coach Jackson, Coach Milwee, we're working on trying to get that right mix of guys at the right time on the field.
Are you deep enough to sub 3 at a time?
Easily. Yeah, we could very easily do that.
So I actually love what Sark said, though, about the right combination of players, because depending on, that week, you may want more of a deep threat. You may want more deep threats out there. So, you may have more Isaiah Bond, more Silas Bowden's that speed guy. Depending on the situation, the certain guys, they become more of a fixture on money downs, third downs. They become those guys. You have red zone guys who are better in the red zone in the confined space. You have guys who are better man beaters, like an AD Mitchell, it's a straight up man beater. Depending on the skill set of the DB, stature of the DB, frame of the DBs. You may decide, all right, you know what, this is a better matchup, Ryan Wingo versus this little DB. Oh man, we can make some things happen. Or this team plays a lot of zone. These receivers are better versus zone than these other receivers who are better versus man, because these teams play a lot of man. It could be. I do think now you do have the luxury of options there.
Yeah, and I think you could even, especially early on when you talk about, and they talk about a lot in Colorado State playing the 230 game. Man, I can keep sticking out speedsters on these cornerbacks until they're throwing up on the sideline.
This is very true.
So if I can just keep switching out, I can just keep running routes because I can just flipping these guys in and out, and now you have to put in your second, third string DBs in some of these games, and you don't have the players that can hang out with how good my string wide receiver is better than your second or third string DB.
That is, you're right. That's hell. As a DB, I can tell you that right now. And that's why Texas is trying to rotate on the other side, because when you got to come back after covering a 9 route deep and then come back and cover another speedster, he's about to run a post route. It don't take long to wear you out. It don't take long at all. And the coaches know it too. They can tell. Like from the coach's view on how they're like, oh, he's tired, man. Hands on his hips, he's tired.
And when it's 130 on the field.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. No, you're right about that. That's a good point. Just having fresh bodies out there you can throw out there is going to matter. Okay, so Sark, I like what Sark's saying there. I don't know if I believe him about the Ryan Niblett thing, but I understand the motivation. I'm going to keep everybody invested. I get that. And you want to reward guys, and just the same guys you keep bringing up, the same 5 or 6 guys. You want to let other receivers know, hey, you have a chance. If you keep working, you keep grinding, you can also crack this circle of trust, even though it's not true. It's like telling your kid they can be president. It ain't true, but you can be anything you want to be. Your kid can't be president. Y'all need to quit lying to me. And by the way, tell them they don't want to be president. You don't want that. There are other really great jobs you could have in professions. You don't even want to be that. I mean, anyway, getting back to it. So the Green Bay Packers, actually, they are an organization right now. They are having a very similar conversation. And by the way, this is a first world problem. This is what Sark called it. This is crying on the yacht. All right. We're crying on the yacht here. Who's going to be our number 1 wide receiver? How's the rotation going to work out? Who's going to start among those 6 guys? I mean, come on, guys. I mean, either any 3 wide receiver combination out of 6 is going to be really good for Texas. So Green Bay Packers fans are also discussing something very similar. They don't really know who the number 1 wide receiver is going to be. It's going to separate. They got Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks. They got Romeo Doubs. They got Jaden Reed's another guy. Jaden Reed led them, I think, in yards and receptions, but I think Dobbs led him in targets. And second in targets was Dontavian Wicks, and Dobbs also, Romeo led him in touchdowns. So they got different guys that are doing different things for him. And they asked Matt LaFleur about this, like straight up, hey man, who's going to be your wide receiver 1? Who's the guy? And we need to know who the guy is, because like everybody wants to know, just like Texas, like who's going to be the guy, who's going to be your starting group. Here's what, listen to Matt LaFleur's response about his wide receiving rotation.
Now we kept asking about, do you need a number 1 receiver and stuff like that in the offseason? You guys have so much talent in that, especially in the top 4, but even beyond that. Where does Wicks fit into that picture?
I get like, I want to vomit every time I hear number 1 receiver, to be honest with you. It drives me crazy. That's something that you guys talk about. I feel like we got a bunch of them. So, but I think they're all kind of, I think the beauty of them is they're all capable of doing many things, which gives us a lot of versatility from an offensive perspective in terms of how we use these guys and deploy their talents. I think, especially those, I would say top 4 guys, they're all capable of being a number 1 in some capacity. And it's just, how do we want to attack somebody and where do we want to put those guys? And it allows us, I mean, who's going to get the ball? I don't know. I mean, it could change on a week-to-week basis. We saw it last year. And then we have Bo Belton come in and be our first 100-yard receiver versus Minnesota. So I think it just, again, it frees us up in terms of just from an offensive standpoint and how we attack people.
I don't want to be vomiting, but
okay. Appreciate that.
I wasn't asking about them. What I was driving at is that exact issue. Is you got 4 guys, and 5 through 8, there's some pretty damn good guys there too. But what's the challenge for you as you choose personnel groups, as you pick and choose how you get a guy. Like there's times when Wicks gets the fewest snaps of those four with the ones, and then you see what he did on something.
He did. He only got one snap the other day, and he made a hell of a play. So, I just, yeah, that could be tough. Maybe we'll be a 10 personnel team. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Hey, who's been talking about 10%? Somebody's been talking about 10%. I don't know who that has been. Oh, that's right. Boom, it's me. All right, because Starks got one of those in his bag too, by the way, from his time in Alabama when he had an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. And he was like, I got 4 first-round wide receivers. Why the hell am I even trying to rotate? Let's just put them all on the field at the same time. And like I said, I don't think you got 4 first-round wide receivers, but I do think you have an embarrassment of riches right now at that position. And I think you could, really impose your will and blitz teams almost with that amount of speed and skill on the field at one time. So I think, and by the way, 10 personnel rates are declining in the SEC, mostly because of the death of Mike Leach. Like, no BS, because Mike Leach ran a lot of 10 personnel. And so there's nobody really running a lot of 10 personnel. They don't have to defend it, which means they don't know how to defend it. They don't defend it a lot, especially with the kind of speed and skill that Texas would bring to the table there. So just throwing that out there, that would also help at least have more players, like as Patrick mentioned in the topic of the Big Fat Poll today, that are more prolific overall in the passing game. That's just one thing you can do, but the Packers, they're answering the very similar questions, or at least the head coach is about, hey, how are you going to get these guys targets? How are you going to, determine the roles of these players? It's a first world problem. But like I said, I think for Sark, ultimately, what he's trying to figure out, because think about the Michigan game. You want players playing in the Michigan game who play big time football. That game's going to be on the road against the defending champions, against a top 5 defense with NFL players at every level of defense, best corner in the league, best D tackle duo in college football, an NFL defensive coordinator. I mean, you're going to want guys on that offense who have seen live action at a high level. You ain't going to want some guy in there. And like I said, that's why I wonder, I love DeAndre Moore, but you want DeAndre Moore out there? You want DeAndre Moore and Jonte Cook out there versus Michigan? When basically the only game that either one of them have started will have been against Colorado State. You really want that? Or do you want Isaiah Bond out there with a Silas Bowden and maybe even a Matthew Golden, guys who have already seen live action, big games, played big games, and maybe that's it. And maybe Jonte Cook is one of those guys. So maybe it's not Golden, maybe it's Cook, maybe it's Bond, and then it's Bowden. But like I said, that to me would, as a coach, I would be a little reluctant to throw 2 of the 3 starting wide receivers out there who haven't seen a lot of action in big games. Nothing against them, but I would like them to get that experience before I throw out there versus Michigan on the road in the big house.
Yeah, so. And I think you're going to throw a lot of things at the wall at Michigan too, just trying to make sure you figure out what to get against, because a lot of Sark's games is trying to find mismatches. And that's when you go into that 10 personnel. If you say, well, in years past, we've been able to get mismatches because we have a tight end and they can't guard our tight end while trying to get on our 3 wide receivers. But if you now say, well, we don't know if we have that wide receiver 1 who's going to be able to get the separation. And so now we need to get down to a little bit deeper in their depth chart at DB and try and throw them off. So we're going to just throw a bunch of different personnel groups at them to keep them guessing and keep trying to get guys out there that don't need to be out there on the field so we can get that mismatch when we want it. You could see those guys get some, but I agree. I don't think DeAndre Moore is probably going to get a ton of run in that game. I think everyone's going to get some run at, I think Sark will use it somewhat as a point to get guys a little more experience before SEC play. So they're going to get out on the field, but starting and getting huge reps, I wouldn't expect.
Yeah. Like I say, it's a first world problem, but Sark's not the only one dealing with it. Interesting though, I love that at the end of that cut that Matt LaFleur said, "Man, we'll just play 10. Maybe we'll just play 10 personnel." It's him basically saying, "I'm just going to double down on our strength. I'm going to maximize whatever our strength is. Our strength is at wide receiver, and the conundrum is." How do I get target share for all of these guys? And when they all are playmakers in their own way, well, I'll just put them all out there. It's the same conundrum that you had with Bijan Robinson and Rojo. Like how am I gonna get both these guys on the field? Put them out there. Put them out there on the field together. What about this really deep offensive line? Well, okay, let's put them out there in a Big 11, Big 12 package, which Sark has done. So Sark has got a history of when he looks at a position group that is really strong and really deep, he'll find a way to maximize it. Somehow. Okay, I know we're up against it. We'll get into Rod's rant next time, even though that was kind of a rant. We'll get into Rod's rant coming up next segment. I want to talk about some of the trends that I'm starting to see in the preseason. Also, how these rookie quarterbacks have looked so far. I think the rookie quarterback class has actually looked pretty good, but also I'm noticing some very interesting really kind of interesting tendencies already with these offenses as they relate to these rookie quarterbacks. We'll discuss that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some conversation here. I got a couple of topics I want to bring up here in Rod's Rant of the Day. First, let's start with the Xavier Worthy thing, and then we'll make our way to some of the trends that I've noticed with some of the new quarterbacks that have at least the first round quarterbacks that have had their first appearance in NFL action in the preseason. We'll get to that, but let's start with Xavier Worthy. So I went and looked at his targets and touches in that game versus the Lions, and I came away like just honestly, I came away a little flabbergasted because usually, because I didn't watch the game, so I didn't know that the ways that Xavier Worthy had gotten the football and the way he was schemed open. I just saw a lot of the highlights. So I went back and tried to look at basically all of his snaps. I think he had 16 snaps or something like that in that game. And he had 4 touches total, 3 receptions for 62 yards, and then he had an 11-yard rush, which I don't think people realized either. So he had a reverse that got 11 yards and a first down. He had a 22-yard touchdown where Carson Wentz threw him a touchdown pass, which was kind of a deep over route. And then he had basically 1 reception for 39 yards. It was like the longest reception he had of the day. And the reason that these plays are so unique, and actually he had a screen that he caught, and it was like a 1-yard gain, but the screen was probably more extravagant than any of the other plays. So here's why the plays were special, because the reception, let's go with the longest reception that he had, the 39-yarder. And so, by the way, think about this. He had 3 receptions. 2 of them ended up being explosive plays. We talked about Patrick Mahomes and the lack of Patrick Mahomes, the lack of the deep ball, and his having his lowest average depth of target and his lowest yards per attempt last season of his career. You go look at his average length of a touchdown. I think the average length of a Patrick Mahomes touchdown last year was less than 4 yards. And on deep passes last year, he had more interceptions than touchdowns. 6 interceptions, 3 touchdowns. He's just not a very proficient or efficient deep ball passer anymore. But it's because he didn't have the threats. So 2 deep targets for Xavier Worthy in that game, and he ended up getting 2 explosive plays, 1 39-yarder and 1 22-yarder. That was the touchdown. And essentially, if you add in the rush, because the reverse is his running play, and I count a explosive play as a 10-yard rush or a 15-yard reception, I believe they may count maybe a 20-yard reception, but still a 10-yard rush is still considered an explosive run. So in all, you would say he had 4 touches and 3 explosive plays. And the reception on the deep ball, the 39-yarder, was him in motion. It was a target to motion. You guys hear me talk about this all the time. A target to motion is when you throw the football to a player who was in motion prior to the snap or in motion at the time of the snap. And he's been using him in motion a lot in the first 2 preseason games. And like I said, usually you don't see teams break out a lot of motion and a lot of their exotic looks in the preseason. But Andy Reid's already doing it because he's got a brand new toy. And Andy Reid had to be looking at Sark's offense because he's looking at how to weaponize a guy like Xavier Worthy. Targets to motion in Sark's offense, just as successful to Xavier Worthy or anybody else. That 1 reception was a target to motion, got him a 39-yarder. In Sark's offense last season on targets to motion, 23% explosive play rate. Means you got an explosive play 23% of the time, over 10 yards per attempt, 78% completion percentage in Sark's offense when he was targeting a player in motion. And that went for Xavier Worthy all the time. As a matter of fact, Xavier Worthy's first season at Texas, I believe he was averaging on plays where he was the target, and when he was obviously target to motion, he was averaging almost 20 yards per catch on plays of pre-snap motion. Just freaky stuff. Andy Reid's going to do the same thing. Like, Andy Reid is one of the top 5 teams in the NFL in using motion. He also had another play where he ran a screen that he also was the target to motion, but it was motion into the backfield. So he was in a slot. They motioned him into the backfield, and then he motioned from out of the backfield to a flare motion, and then they threw it to him, and it was a screen. He only got like a yard on it. But you talk about trying to scheme him open. That's what I'm seeing a lot of from Andy Reid with Xavier Worthy, scheming him open on the 39-yarder. They brought him in motion, cross the formation, and as soon as they snapped the football, he was, I believe, the number 3 receiver, and ended up running that deep kind of post route. No, sorry, deep corner route, and it caught the 39-yarder. But he was in the slot, and he was on the move. And the touchdown, he was also in the slot. He was not on the move though for the 22-yard touchdown, but he was in the slot and ran one of those deep kind of deep over routes, which Sark loves too. I call them rainbow crossers. But he ran it 22 yards, just outran the defense. Touchdown by Carson Wentz. And then that was the reverse. And in the reverse, of course, they had him flexed, and essentially it's just a simple, it's kind of simple ending around for X-Man. Ended up getting 11 yards. Nicely blocked, but beautiful design. So he's using them. This is the way he's using them in the preseason. And it's paying off. Like I said, he had 2 explosive plays on 4 targets, and he had another explosive play on the ground on a touch. I'm telling you guys, man, Xavier Worthy's about to be he will be the explosive threat for them. I don't know if he'll be I think he'll be the one of the leading receivers, but in terms of, obviously Travis Kelce is going to be the number 1 target for Patrick Mahomes. And then there's Rashee Rice, who I think they really like too, and Rashee Rice looks really good. But in terms of who's getting schemed open the most and who's being weaponized, I'll put Xavier Worthy at the top of that list. So I'd buy that stock. And if he's showing this kind of stuff in the preseason, I can imagine the stuff they got ready for Xavier Worthy and the rest of the league to prepare for during the regular season. So that's my Xavier Worthy rant. Buy more Xavier Worthy stock. Let's talk about the quarterbacks really quick, the rookie quarterbacks. I went and looked at their performances. The most interesting of all the rookie performances so far, and that's all rookie quarterbacks, the first round rookie quarterbacks, I should say specifically, is Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels, now, if you go look at it, he is 12 of 15 so far in the preseason, 80% completion percentage, 123 yards, and a 100.8 passer rating. In the game versus the Dolphins, he was 10 of 12, 83%, 91 total yards, 93.8 passer rating. It's the combination of Jaden Daniels' unique skill set and then having a guy like Cliff Kingsbury calling the plays. We just talked about the air raid offense, which Texas is going to see when they face Colorado State. It's going to be an air raid offense. Little Hal Mummy's son is, I believe, the offensive coordinator there, and they run that air raid, a very true air raid, if you will. Well, Washington's, kind of running that kind of version of the air raid with Cliff Kingsbury. And Jaden Daniels on his drop back so far, he's got 15 dropbacks. I said he was 12-15. His average seconds to throw, 1.9 seconds. His time to throw, average time to throw. He's getting the ball out 1.9 seconds. That's the fastest last season was 2.3 seconds. He has 2 attempts that are over 2.5 seconds. That took him more than 2.5 seconds to get the ball off. His yards per attempt, air yards per attempt with the ball traveled through the air is less than 6 yards. Average depth of target also less than 6 yards. Last year, the shortest air yards per attempt was 5.7. He's at 5.5. And if you go look at it, they have, I think 40% of their dropbacks have been screened so far. Matter of fact, they've run 19 screens. No other team has more than 10 screen passes. They're getting the ball out of Jaden Daniels' hands quick. And I'll say this, I think that it's going to help them a little bit, but also it does nullify, if you will, one of his best attributes as a quarterback, which is his ability to scramble and move around. If he's not holding on to the ball, then the one thing you would probably freak out about, defending Jaden Daniels would be his ability to scramble. I mean, he's got a great deep ball too. They take away both of those elements with the Kingsbury offense in the area. They take away his deep ball, which is one of the best in the league, and they take away his ability to scramble because the ball's out of his hands so fast. The explosive play rate of a Jaden Daniels scramble last season at LSU against Power 5 teams, he got a explosive play 27% of the time when he scrambled against Power 5 teams. it was, I'm telling you, when he was scrambled, it was lethal. And he scrambled more than any other quarterback, arguably, since 2014. He in 2012 and 2022, he led college football with 70 scrambles. This is Power 5, I should say. And in 2019, he led the Power 5 with 67 scrambles. He loves, and he loves to scramble, and he's good at it. But if he doesn't have to actually drop back, you don't have to worry about him scrambling. So I would say that, right now it's early, very small sample size. Cliff Kingsbury's system actually, although I understand what he's doing, he wants to get the ball out quickly. It actually is taking away one of Jaden Daniels' most lethal assets, which is his ability to just scramble and improvise, second reaction plays, make something out of nothing. Guys, the most effective play in football is a scramble. Is a quarterback. I'm not BSing you. It's a quarterback scramble. Quarterback scramble averages 8.5 yards per play in the NFL. There's only one quarterback that averages more yards per attempt than the average scramble, because it's when the play breaks down. No defensive coordinator can account for it. It's not in my defensive playbook. I don't have a defense that can account for the scramble. Nobody does. It's when the play breaks down, and you got to just hope your defenders have great instincts. And so if you're the Cowboys, you got to like this, because you got to worry about Jaden Daniels scrambling as much. I hope that Cliff Kingsbury would figure it out. Like, all right, every now and then I got to have him just drop back, so at least he has the opportunity to do so. But right now, balls out, screens. It's more of a true air raid. Terry McLaurin, the receiver, he's had 29 snaps. He's been on the left side of the formation 28 of the 29 snaps. They're not even moving him around. That's air raid. That's like true air raid stuff. You're so specialized at one position, you learn that one position, and you're going to run the same combination of routes 80% of the time. I don't like that. I don't like it. I think you got to have more nuance to your system. That's a little too much of it. Am I right? Remember at USC? I don't know if he wasn't calling the plays. Remember, he was there like as the offensive coordinator,
like assistant head coach or something like that.
Something
it was
like
something,
that.
or
Yes.
quality control. It was something that he wasn't in a position, but it was.
Yes, exactly. And he wasn't calling the plays, Lincoln Riley plays. But remember, USC last year, I don't know if this was Lincoln Riley's influence on Cliff Kingsbury or vice versa, but remember, they called the most screens in the Power 5 last year. They had Caleb Williams throwing 137 screens. And they weren't necessarily great at it. They were averaging 6 yards per attempt, 34% success rate. So I wonder if this is a Kingsbury thing, and if it is, they might need to. I think they should deviate a little from that. I don't think that's going to be successful in the league. Okay, getting back to one of the other quarterbacks, Caleb Williams. So talk about him real quick. Something I noticed about Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb Williams, I think he's been 10 of 20, 50% completion percentage. Passer rating 79 overall in the postseason, but he's an eye test guy. He's got 1 sack, 100. If you've watched him, then you go, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. If you look at his stats, you'll go, that's not that impressive. You got to watch him. You got to go watch him in the league right now. His ability to extend the play, I think Patrick Mahomes is the best at it. I think Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen are probably also top 3 in terms of when the original play breaks down, how dangerous they become. You can make the argument that those 3 guys are more dangerous when the original play breaks down in second reaction situations, scramble drill situations, than they are within the framework and the structure of the original play. So let me give you Caleb Williams stat. Blew me away too. If you go look at Caleb Williams' average time to throw so far, small sample size in the preseason, he's at 3.6 seconds. By the way, if you go look at it, 3.6 seconds. Justin Fields at 3.93 seconds. I went to talking about the extreme of Cliff Kingsbury getting the ball out in Jaden Daniels' hands in like 1.9 seconds. That's a little too quick. I don't even know if you got time to process. That's just a screen, dump off, quick. That's no processing going on there. And I believe 3.68 for Caleb Williams may be a little too long, him holding on to the football. But I think that's most of that is because he'll have 1 or 2 plays where it's a 6 and 7 second play before he throws the football, because he scrambles and then he wants to change direction, and then you got a spin move in there. Like his improvisation and his second reaction ability are fantastic. I think that's what's inflating that number to 3.68. I don't think that's how he operates, within the structure of the offense usually. But when the play breaks down, go watch him. He's got like 3 highlights already this preseason. Play breaks down, he gets outside the pocket, extends the play, and this just puts the ball on the money. Just throws an absolute dime. And his ability to throw on the run, I think Mahomes is better. I don't know who else is better. Maybe in terms of his accuracy throwing on the run. I think he may already be the second best accurate quarterback throwing on the run in the league right now. There's a chance. He's that good when he is moving, and whether he be moving to his right or his left, he is fantastic and fantastically accurate throwing the ball on the run. We know JJ McCarthy had the season-ending injury, but you make the argument that JJ McCarthy probably had the best start to a preseason of any of the quarterbacks. Highest passer rating, completion percentage was 64%, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception. He looked really good. So I think I think Caleb Williams looked good. I think Jaden Daniels looked good. I like what I saw from JJ McCarthy. The Michael Penix thing is interesting because I heard Raheem Morris say that he didn't need to see anything else from Michael Penix this preseason. I mean, he has a 56% completion percentage in the games and a 76 passer rating with 104 yards passing. So maybe he did see enough. I watched a few of the snaps. He looked good, but I don't know if I've seen enough considering you got Kirk Cousins as your starter. I probably would let Michael Penix play a little bit more. But he says he's shutting him down because he's seen whatever he needs to see. So that's it. I don't know if Michael Penix has looked great, but I like Michael Penix a lot. And I like him.
Does that give you a feeling that maybe they're not 100% sold on Kirk Cousins' health right now?
Maybe you're right about that.
And maybe there's a little bit of worry coming off that Achilles that he may not be fully perfect week 1. And so they think, hey, man, we really need Michael Penix to be ready week 1 just to tide us over maybe.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. That's you could go there. I didn't think about that, but that makes a lot of sense. That's now let's shut him down because we may need him sooner rather than later. Yeah, unfortunately. But that would make that pick look smarter.
It would make it look smarter. But I mean, you could have also signed, a decent backup there that would probably be more experienced and ready to go and give you a couple weeks.
But yeah. And say that does happen. Let's play that out real quickly. Say that does happen. Then Penix plays well. You guys make the playoffs because Atlanta looks like they're going to be a really good team. And even Penix, I think, they could still be a playoff team with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Then what the hell you do next year when you end up with Kirk Cousins? You got to pay that big money.
And I think Kirk Cousins, the whole deal would be he would be able to come back, but he wouldn't be 100% till week 4. And so the question is, does Michael Penix do enough in 3 weeks that he supplants Kirk Cousins before Kirk Cousins can really come back and be 100%?
Yeah, I guess it's a good problem to have if you end up with that problem. But no, you're right about that. And Michael Penix, just really quickly, in terms of some of his stats, average depth of target, 8.6. One thing I didn't bring up also about Caleb Williams, highest average depth of target of all these quarterbacks. So he's almost at 12 yards average depth of target. So is he holding on to the ball? Remember we were talking about when we were discussing Kenny Pickett and how Kenny Pickett would hold on. He'd hold on to the ball, but also like he would get rid of the ball quickly, but still get sacked. And it's like, that doesn't make sense that you get rid of the ball quickly. You're checking it down, but still taking sacks. He's taking like 4 sacks. And yet his average depth of target was really low. And his time to throw was really low as well. So he was getting rid of the ball, checking it down, but also taking sacks, defeats the purpose. Caleb Williams is the exact opposite. Caleb Williams, his average depth of target is 12, almost 12 yards because his average time to throw is 3.68. So he's holding on to the ball. He's looking downfield. He's like, go. I'll find you. Exciting brand of football to watch from Caleb Williams. Okay, Bo Nix. Bo Nix actually has had a pretty good preseason, guys. He's 23 of 30 throwing the football, 205 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 116.7 passer rating. He had a touchdown taken off the board. I know he did have a safety that he took a sack and it was a safety. I understand that, but he's actually looked pretty good. This quarterback class, I know it's a small sample size, but they don't look bad. Drake May's the only one that's just looked bad. I say him and Michael Penix haven't looked great because Michael Penix didn't look great either. But Michael Penix, I think, looked better than Drake May. Drake May's the one that, he just doesn't look like he's ready for this level yet.
No,
and maybe some more time.
Let's put it this way: Drake May will at least give the excuse of I don't have any faith in that Patriots team right now, and
That's
so
true.
there's not a lot going for him other than that. So maybe take him a little bit more time. But yeah, Michael Penix, you got the talent there. There's stuff happening there. You're supposed to be doing better.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right about that too. All right, there you go. It's a little breakdown of the QBs, the first round quarterbacks, and how they're performing so far this preseason. We come back. We got what the facts, what the stats on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some what the facts, what the stats here on the show. All right, how about this one? This comes from the NFL stats, actually their NFL research. So I'll give them stats. Stats by Lopez. It's kickoff stats through preseason week 2. All right, and it's comparing the last 3 years with the new kickoff return rules in the NFL, the new hybridized rule with the XFL kickoff return. So return rate is at 78%. Got 78% of your kickoffs that have been returned through week 2 of the preseason. Last year, through week 2 of the preseason, that number was at 64%. And in 2022, that number was at 59% through week 2 of the preseason. So return rate is up. Average field position. This is average field position and also with returns only. So you got your average field position, period, and then the ones where are just all average field position on just kickoff returns only. The average field position this season, 28.3 yard line. And from kickoff returns, the average field position, 27.5 yard line. Last year, that was at 23.9 and 23. And in 2022, that was at 24.8 and 24.6. So offenses are getting at least, 4 to 5 more yards of average field position to work with because of the kickoffs. That's not bad. And this is prior to you putting some of your more dynamic playmakers back on those returns. Big play returns, 40-plus yarders. How about this is what the NFL really wants. They want the return rate to go up. They want to get rid of the touchback for the most part. NFL coaches, they want better field position, so you're getting that. But ultimately, the NFL wants it to be an exciting play again, not just, it was a dead play at one time. Now they've resuscitated. It's a play that matters. But how about now it become a play that thrives? Big play returns in 2024 so far through 2 weeks of the preseason, 15 returns of 40-plus yards. In 2023, you had 6. In 2022, through week 2 of the preseason, you had 11. So your big play returns are up too. Big play returns up, field position is up, and return rate is up. That's not bad. Of note, roughly 40% of preseason week 2 kickoffs reach the end zone compared to 30% from week 1. So you are getting some coaches who are deciding, to hell with it, just kick it in the end zone. They don't care.
It'll be interesting to see if they, if enough coaches just say, screw it, I don't want to deal with this.
Yep, I don't care.
And
I'm not going to spend practice time on it.
And then that will be when they have to go back to the competition committee and see if it goes to the 35.
Yep, you're right. Because I think you could get some coaches to go, I'm not going to spend 15, 20 minutes of practice time on this. No, I'm
not risking my players. I don't want to do any of that for 2 yards.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good for 5 yards. Not worth it for me. You know what? Let's just kick it through the end zone, and that'll save all of us time. And I got a kicker that can consistently do it. We're not even worried
because what they say, the average return is 28 to the 28.6 right now.
Yes, right
now. So
yeah.
you're saying for all of that, the average return is 1.4 yards less than what I give up. So for 1.4 yards, why am I risking anything?
No, I said there's some coaches who may decide that. I agree.
There's some, and then they're going to get pissed on the other end when they need a big play on a return and the guy kicks it through the end zone. Like, they don't want to play football.
No, I guess, and yeah, if I got Tyreek Hill back there, I'm not kicking it that dude.
Yeah, that's another one is who you stick back there.
I'd rather kick that through the end zone. I'm like, no, he's too good. So yeah, on one end it'd be like, no, that guy's too good. I'm not kicking him. And the other end is like, no, we don't care that much about it.
Yeah,
well, that 5 yards means nothing to us.
It's also that fun if there's like 4 seconds left on the clock or something like that.
Oh, and you got to kick off to like a star.
Because I don't think you can really squib in this, can you?
I don't think so. Not with the way the format is set up. I think but I got to go check it out. Now with the rules and the way they're set up, I think you have to kick it to a certain area.
Yeah.
Because
otherwise you just hit one of your own players in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. But that the way they set it up, you can't just squib it every time. You got to kick it, which is why they're either kicking through the end zone or they're kicking in. They got a term for it now. Basically, kind of the sweet spot where they catch it every time. So the reception zone or something like that, I think is what they call it. But no, you're right about that. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the approach is for a lot of teams when it comes to that. I really can't wait because I think some coaches are going to do the math and figure that it adds up over a season. That if you do it, that hidden yardage, that it'll add up over a season. But ultimately, I'm with you. I don't know if it'll be worth it when you consider the practice time, and all the time you got to put into it. The different specialists you got to add to it.
You may have the coaches who say the league average is 28.6. Ours is 22.5. Like ours is a big one because we do spend the time. So our average is so we're giving up 6-7 yards for it. So why would we do that? The league average because they suck at it.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. I think there will be some coaches like, no, they're not good at it. We know what we're doing, and those will be the really good special teams coaches. Okay, another quick nugget. I know we're close to it. How about this one? This comes from Dennis Dodd. So there's been a lot of talk about can a 9-3 team make the college football playoff this year with a 12-team playoff. He said he did the research, and he said going back to 1998. He said, and accounting for the 12-team bracket and the rules they have about conference champions and the bye week and everything, he said there would have been at least a total of 28 teams with at least 3 losses make the college football playoff over those 26 years from 1998 till now. So basically, you would have had an average of at least one 9-3 team make the playoff every year. He said there were 16 combined. 16, he said here, all those 28 would have been from the Power Four, but he said 16 combined came from teams in the Big Ten and the SEC currently. He said in only 7 years in his research would there have been no 3-loss teams in the college football playoff at all. So you'll probably get some 3-loss teams, but they'll probably be from the SEC and the Big Ten, is basically what he's saying. You can't be a 3-loss team from the Big 12, probably ain't going to work. 3-loss team from the ACC ain't going to work.
Colorado State
Gotta
getting in 5-7.
Colorado, hey, you know that group of 5, group of whatever they are, group of 6, I don't know what they are now. They gonna get one. They're gonna get one. Like, who's gonna be that one? That's the question. Who's gonna be
someone had one of the people put out their list and had Texas State.
Texas State, I saw that. I saw Pro Football Focus actually put out a list, and they put Texas State as one of the teams.
Yeah.
They can make a move. Hey, that'd be wow. That'd be pretty cool, though, if Texas State made it in there. All right, there you go. So what the facts, what the stats. We come back. We'll get into some of the other big topics of the day. An icon, a legend, decides to call it quits and head to the broadcasting booth. We'll discuss that. Malik Murphy named as the starter for Duke. We'll discuss it, and we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, the head coach of the Texas football team. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, he plays jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. Oh, this is a classic right here. I actually heard this not too long ago because I watched the latest
reboot. Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think it's considered a reboot, right?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's not a sequel; it's a reboot.
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. Maybe it's like a continuing because don't they have the other people involved in it still? Somewhat.
They do. You're right. They're still. That's right. They did bring back like Dan Aykroyd has an appearance in it, and so they did bring. Bill Murray has an appearance in it. So you're right. They did bring back, and they did bring them back. So I guess. I
don't know if it's
kind of a sequel,
but yeah,
I think it's kind of a mix of the sequel and kind of reboot because they kind of have reset everything. But you're right, they do acknowledge the old Ghostbusters, and so I guess that's a sequel because maybe the one with all the women, remember the Ghostbusters they did with all the ladies.
That was more a reimagining.
Yes, different timeline, alternate universe of Ghostbusters.
There's more thought of names to call this than new ideas in Hollywood now.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right because it's the prequel. It could be a prequel. It could be a sequel. It could be a reboot. It could be, or it can just be, or it can be like I learned it because there's a new Alien coming out, right? Alien.
It just came out. Yeah,
I don't know if
I've heard good things about it from my friends who've seen it.
Dude, my wife shocked me. She was like, "I want to see that." I was like, "You want to see Alien? What the hell?" I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy." But I did get her to go see like Prometheus back in the day, and she got kind of into it. And she's younger, so she really didn't get to the A. I don't think she's seen the original. I have to make her like watch.
You got to see the original.
Dude, I was watching the original like earlier this week because I was like, you know what? If I'm watching Romulus, let me go get back into it a little bit. And she's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's the original Alien." What are you talking? You don't even know the original Alien? You watched Prometheus, the prequel, and then you didn't even have any knowledge. You went into the prequel.
You had no interest in watching the one.
She just thought Prometheus was just like a cool concept for a movie. I'm like, no, baby, it's based on a whole genre of a film series, an iconic series. So anyway, so I was watching that a little bit, and because Prometheus is the prequel, and then they got like 2 prequels to Alien, and this one is because it's weird. Like sometimes they'll put a sequel now in the middle of where the movie's timeline. Yeah, like Star Wars kind of started. They'll just go back and just like, you know what? No, this story actually took place in between, part 3 and part 4. And you're like, what the hell? Where did that come from? And now I don't even know what you call that. Like, it's because a sequel is supposed to be after. What is that? It's not a prequel. It's not a sequel. What is it?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a name.
Yeah, sure there's a name for it, but that's like the new thing. Like, and now you can go like outside the entire movie timeline and have an alternate universe, the multiverse with that. Yes, because like the Batmans have done this. Yes. The Batmans no longer are linked, right? The Michael Keaton Batman, the Val Kilmer Batman, the George Clooney Batman. Yes,
they all Christian actually Bale exist, but they exist in different. Yes,
they're different timelines now. They're different types of Batman. Because even the Joker, the newest Joker movies and Joker franchise, it's not really necessarily connected to all the Batmans either. Like it's kind of venturing off on its kind of separate timeline. Because remember the old Batman, one of his obsessions was the Joker was the one that killed his parents, and then that's why he was obsessed with the Joker in one of those other timelines. So it's all different.
And then it was Joe Cool in some other one. I don't know why I know these things.
I don't know why you know these
movies. I just know these things.
They got a Penguin, actually, a Penguin series coming out on HBO.
With Colin Farrell.
Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty damn good.
But
anyway, my point is, I watched Alien versus Predator, and it's like the people who love that movie franchise just say that's an alternate timeline that did not take place within the series of the movies. That was just separate. They just made it up. So
it was not canon.
Yeah, exactly. So these days it's hard to kind of keep up with reboot, sequel, whatever. I consider this Texas football team, like last year's Texas football team, to me, that was a sequel. It felt like a sequel. It felt like we were building up to a crescendo, right? It felt like Sark's first year is pretty much the same guys, all those guys. And then we watched them grow up in the second year. Xavier Worthy and then JT Sanders and there's Bijan and Rojo and these offense. I feel like we've been building up to it. And last year was like the apex of the franchise and that sequel. This year feels kind of like a reboot. It's weird. You're in a new conference. You know what I mean? Like you got a lot of new faces in the wide receiver core. We don't know Quinn's got, so you got your main character that's still there, right? But it does feel a little bit more like a reboot than a sequel.
Yeah, maybe it's a spinoff. Is it a spinoff?
Could be a spinoff. Yeah, maybe we got a spinoff. But right, because you're in the SEC, it's just different than it has been with a lot of kind of new faces. But I don't know, maybe we're going too deep into it.
I don't know. All right, let me ask you this: do you go? Would you do the Alien in the 4D? Have you tried the 4D theater yet?
No, that might be too much for me. This is like super IMAX stuff going on.
It's like the IMAX, but it's got like it's got like wind, and I think they probably do smell and like the seats move and stuff. Like it's got all this stuff that's supposed to go into it,
like interactive stuff.
Yeah, so like stuff of where like it's supposed to feel like someone goes past your legs at points.
Oh hell no!
To
I don't want to
feel
do
like
that.
you're in the movie, and that's
no. I don't need that at all. I don't need that.
You don't need like
you
the
mean
little,
like something
the little
like my
breath on
seat might move or
like
something.
So you're watching like a suspense movie, and there's like a breath on the back of your neck from the seat.
Oh nope, no. We can't. No, I don't need that. Where is they have these available?
Yeah, there's a couple of them that exist. Yeah,
I bet kids would love that. I bet kids that'd be fantastic. I don't need to be more scared. I don't get scared in movies like that, but I don't want to be like I don't need to go to a haunted house. Like I'm good.
No,
like, people like haunted houses.
I pay for.
Yes, exactly.
I paid to not have that emotion.
I want to be. I don't want to be terrified. Some people. I do like roller coasters though. I like roller coasters, but I don't like haunted houses. I think they're very different.
They're very different because like I go skydiving. I would not go to have a random person fake kill me. There's a big difference between the two.
Chase you with a chainsaw.
Big difference.
And you're like, I am actually scared. I'm running.
I don't know. I feel like I should punch you, but then I'm the bad guy.
It's like, dude, I'm playing a role. It's like, well, I'm not playing a role. Okay, I'm genuinely terrified and horrified here. Yeah, that's different to me. Good point. I like the way you said that because I know both of them are kind of thrill seeking, but they're just different types of thrill seeking. So I never get scared by movies, and I don't necessarily want to. Like I don't want to be. I just want to be intrigued by the plot. I don't need. I don't need to be terrified by it. But there you go. Some people are. I think my wife is going to be scared when she watches Alien around me. She's one of the people that get scared at every damn thing. They're fun to watch movies with though too, because you could just torment them the whole damn time. She's got it by midway through the movie, she'll jump at any damn thing. All right, let's get to it here. We'll get to the Horn headlines, and then we'll come back. And I want to discuss Colt McCoy's retirement. We'll discuss that. We'll also talk about Malik Murphy. A lot of congratulatory messages were sent to him via social media because he officially won the starting job as the quarterback there at Duke. And there's a really interesting connection. Not only does Texas former quarterback, or one of their former quarterbacks, is the starting quarterback there, Malik Murphy, but the head coach is also a former head coach a former coordinator for the Longhorns too. And there's an interesting connection between he and Malik Murphy. So I want to give you that. Then we'll discuss some Texas football. We got a lot to get into, but before we do that, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with my man Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros won their series opener with the Red Sox last night, 5-4, with the Yanier Diaz walk-off homer in the ninth. Houston's unusually poor fielding on the day with 4 errors cost him early as Yusei Kikuchi allowed 3 runs, but only 1 was earned. The Astros fought back with runs in the 6th and the 8th, and the Astros bullpen held in the final innings to get to that walk-off homer. Roniel Blanco will get the start for the Astros tonight, looking for his 10th win of the season. And the Rangers start off their series with the Pirates with a 4-3 win. Corey Seager had 2 big home runs, knocking in all 4 in the for the Rangers in the game. And Jose Reyna was able to pitch 4 shutout innings to get to Kirby Yates' 22nd save of the season. Cody Bradford takes the mounds for the Rangers tonight as he continues to improve after his return from injury. And that's your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. CB, my man CB at Chris GB002000 says, hey, guys. Ghostbusters Afterlife, the 2021 movie, is essentially part 3. It's really good. It has all the original Ghostbusters in it. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is the sequel to Afterlife. There you go. Boom.
So wait,
right,
but that's still I still don't get it though, because it's a sequel to a sequel, but it's not a sequel to the original sequels, right?
It is because I know because
I don't watch movies. Too confusing.
Yeah, he is right because part 3, which essentially that Afterlife, because I believe it's the daughter of No, she's like the daughter and the grandchildren of one of the original Ghostbusters. So that's how they make it.
Yes. No, I got it. CB is exactly right of how I understand it, and I still don't understand it.
That's a great way of summarizing it right there, too. No, thank you, CB, for that. I appreciate it. All right, let's talk about some. Speaking of CB, I know he always does the countdown to Texas football. We appreciate him. And yesterday, gave some props to Colt McCoy because it was 12 days to Texas football. And now we're 11. But on that 12, do we think that Colt McCoy, that obviously that timing of the announcement, did he time that out with the 12th day to Texas football?
I don't know. I didn't even think of it, but maybe he
It
did.
was released, right? It had to.
It had
that
to
was
have.
cool. It's not a coincidence that we're counting
No.
down to the days of Texas football, and then on the 12th day, we're honoring Colt McCoy, who was the greatest number 12 in Texas football history, that he also announces his retirement and that he's going to start doing, Big Ten football games. No, that's not a coincidence. He did that on purpose.
Well, at least somebody around him did.
Yes, exactly. He's got a publicist now that's helping him. No, it's a good idea because I think he just kind of his name's gonna already be trending and viral. So you might as well take advantage of it. But yes, so shout out to Colt McCoy and congratulations to the legendary lifetime Longhorn because he's gonna start his broadcasting career. I've seen him do some, I think it's for Underdog Fantasy, where he does film breakdown. I've seen it on like YouTube. He really is good at breaking down film though. In like layman's terms, for the Gen Pop. So if he's just, breaking it down, which I think he's going to do as a color analyst, he'll be fantastic. And I'm sure he's going to be funny and colorful and those kind of things. But you want the meat in terms of the football knowledge, he got plenty of that. So he's going to be joining NBC Sports for their coverage of Big Ten football. That was announced officially. And then additionally, he'll serve as a game analyst who will also appear on the Big Ten College Football Countdown studio show. So he's also going to be on that too. So congrats to my man, Colt McCoy. He got shafted out of one of them Heismans though. That 2008 season, he should have won the Heisman that year. 2009, not sure, but 2008, dude should have won the Heisman that year. Yeah. It's unbelievable. I think that's when he set the all-time completion percentage record in college football, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's that year. That he got robbed. That should have been it for him. But he also if not for the tragic play in the national title game, there's a good chance, guys, that if Colt McCoy doesn't get hurt in that game, I've heard Alabama players say it. I've heard Texas players say it. I believe it because I was at that game too, and I saw Mac Brown before that game, and I told you guys I'd never seen Mac so confident. He was borderline arrogant before that game. I've never seen Mac like that. He was almost certain that they were going to put it on Alabama. Because that was the beginning of the Nick Saban dynasty. And that Nick Saban defense was really good, but it wasn't necessarily built to defend that type of spread. And I don't even know if any defense could defend the bromance that was Colt McCoy and Jordan Shipley. And then the 2008 bromance is even better because Quan was added to the bromance too. Because Quan and Jordan are really close. And then Quan and Colt are really close. Like that is the greatest example of quarterback wide receiver chemistry in Texas football history. And nothing's ever come close to it since, and nothing will ever come close to it. Nobody's ever have chemistry like that with a wide receiver.
The way I always put it is the fact that Texas was technically in that game in the fourth quarter and they threw 4 interceptions. That's
good point.
It tells you that if you take away the 4 interceptions, that you most likely would if you don't put in an experienced quarterback who just kind of had to be thrust into a situation that you probably have a pretty good shot in that game.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, Mac convinced me, and I was like, man, Texas. I think that's when I picked Texas. I was like, Texas is gonna win this damn game because Mac, he got something up his sleeve. And I think what it was that he knew kind of what you're saying, that they weren't gonna be able to stop Colt in that passing game.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they would be able to make some plays, and they couldn't stop it. But once Colt got hurt, even Garrett Gilbert still almost pulled off one of the greatest stories of all time. But I digress. If Colt doesn't get hurt, they win that game and potentially win a national title. Guys, he surpasses VY like in Longhorn lore and legend. Like it's him. He's the guy, the most celebrated figure in Texas football history, arguably, and not Vincent Paul Young. Like that's how close he was. And by the way, in the record books, I mean, it's all him. It's all him. Most yards in a game, season, and career, Colt. Most passing yards in a single season. Coach there. He's twice in the top. No, sorry. He's 3 times in the top 6, twice in the top 3. If you go look at, let's go look at most completions in a single season. Colt is 1, 2. He's 1 and 2 on there. You go look at completions in a career. He's number one on there. Most completions in a single game. He's 1 and 2 there. Highest passing efficiency rating for a season in a career. Both are Colt. Most quarterback victories, Colt. Most quarterback starts, Colt. Most attempts in a season and in a career, that's Colt. Most attempts in a single game or a single season, yep, that's him too. You go look at lowest or highest completion percentage, of course. I mean, that's Colt. Season, career, doesn't matter. And like I said, you go look. I'll hear about this with most touchdown passes. He is tied in a game with Casey Thompson, who also had 6 in that game versus Kansas. But for a game, season, and career, that's Colt. Man, yeah, it's like I said. Either it doesn't matter where I go in these record books. I'm trying to find, any type of obscure record, but he's everywhere. Most 300-yard games. He's actually tied in a season with Quinn for most 300-yard games in a season, most 300-yard games in a career. That's Colt. Most 400-yard games, Coach in a season. Coach tied for the most. Like I said, he's all over the record book. See, in terms of quarterbacking, I don't know if anybody's ever played the quarterback position better at Texas than Colt. They might have played it as good, but not better.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. He's definitely. And I'm with you. I think that, if you say that he wins that title and walks off, into the sunset with that national championship, he then has that lore of the guy.
Yep. There'll be a that'll be a statue. I mean, in front of DKR of Colt McCoy. So congrats to Colt. I'm glad that he has kind of found his calling after football. Some guys struggle with that, not for coaching. Because a lot of people thought he'd go into coaching because his dad's a coach or was a coach. Not the case. They decided to go into the broadcast booth instead. All right, let's talk about Malik Murphy really quickly. Malik Murphy was announced as the starting quarterback of the Duke Blue Devils. Congratulations to him. And how about this? I was reading a story about Malik Murphy and about his fresh start at Duke. And this is actually before he got the starting job. And it was talking about his journey and why he decided to choose Duke, and really how disappointed he was in to have to leave Texas. Like, I remember he said he didn't want to leave. Didn't want to leave Texas. He had to because he wanted a path to the field, wanted a path to play. And at Texas, there was no path to play, especially when you added Arch Manning to the mix. And we all know Arch Manning was going to play, period. And I think Malik Murphy knew that too. That's why Malik Murphy decided to go. But before that, he helped Texas stabilize the quarterback position. But here's a nice little anecdote about his recruitment to Duke, because Manny Diaz is now the head coach there. And it says here, this little blurb from the ESPN article. It said, when Murphy entered the portal last December, first-year coach Manny Diaz decided to make a play for the former Elite 11 quarterback with Duke starter Riley Leonard, who gone to Notre Dame at the time. And apparently Manny Diaz, I brought this up, I don't know, back in July when I originally read this article. Manny Diaz, this is how he sealed the recruitment of Malik Murphy and got him. He had an old photo of Malik Murphy when he was a middle schooler attending a football camp at Miami, where Manny Diaz previously worked. And Malik Murphy said he got the text from Manny Diaz, and Diaz told him he still had the photo, and he sent him a screenshot of the photo. And apparently for Malik Murphy, that sealed the deal. He said, the standpoint of me knowing I met him, I talked to him before, made me comfortable enough to take my talents to where he was coaching. And then Diaz described Murphy as a gifted passer and knew that Murphy had started big games in big environments. And he also knew convincing Murphy to come to Duke, which had lost Mike Elko to Texas A&M, and their starting quarterback and some other players to transfer portal, would be a huge win for the locker room and the culture of the team, that kind of thing. But how about that? Manny Diaz, he was working at Miami. They had every major college football program has football camps. And one of them football camps, he meets a scrawny little, middle school guy, quarterback named Malik Murphy. and he takes a picture with him. And all these years later, he keeps the picture and then has the picture with him when he's recruiting Malik Murphy via the transfer portal, and then is able to use that to seal the recruitment and to close on him. That is a hell of a story. I don't know how he ends up keeping the photo. I'd love to know from Manny Diaz. Did you know he was special? I'm sure Manny Diaz will spin it and be like, I knew he was going to be special. When I first met him, I knew when he took that picture, I said, I'm going to keep this picture because this young man's going to be special. Or does he have just a file cabinet full of old photos of kids from all of his time, as a coach that he keeps, and he keeps them categorized and organized, and he can go back there anytime. And that's kind of one of his ways to seal the deal with some big time recruiters that, hey man, I remember you. Like, which one is it, Patrick? What are we talking about here?
Or
which one?
Or is it just all AI now?
Oh, that's true too. I have seen some creepy AI stuff. That's freaky. The deep fakes.
The deep fakes. I honestly, it's so hard for me to believe that he just had like 5 photos of kids. Like, because first of all, it can't be one, because it's way creepier if it's just one too.
What if that's the one? That's the one, man. You made you still. That'll make you feel special if you're just the one.
Oh, really? Because then you're like, how many photos are there, Manny? Is it one photo, or is there like 100 photos of me in your house?
Oh,
is there a room?
In pristine condition too. He kept it like in a glass case.
Oh, I think that he took pictures a lot and then kept them, and then was like, what year was that? Okay, go into that year that he would have been at the camp, and let's see if we got one. Okay, that's him. We're good.
Let's see that.
That just seems like
that's smart too, man.
Yes, that seems like a smart
to
coaching decision to be like, all right, let's grab these guys that we could be using. I plan to have a long coaching career and do all these things. That just makes so much more sense to me than him being like, nope, one kid. It's going to end up, well, are you going to recruit him? Probably not. I mean, I won't be a head coach at the time. And then also he'll go somewhere else. But there will be this thing invented called the transfer portal.
That's true. When he first kept the photo, he had no idea if he made it get him via the transfer. So why not throw it away? You're right. It's a good point. Great point. Yeah, that's a great point. It is it's way creepier if it's the only photo.
Yeah.
Then that's a my precious kind of moment. And you don't want that. So yeah, I hope it's just a very sophisticated filing system from all the camps and all the players that he's met throughout the years. And it's kind of one of his go-to tricks.
Also, he moves like, because coaches have to move. Does every time does he have to explain to the movers, look, don't look in the file cabinet. And if you do, it's a coaching thing. It's not, trust me.
Pictures of young teenage boys just in workout gear and shorts and shirtless and just hanging out. And it's like it's a lot of young boys, adolescent boys. You got pictures of me. It's like, no, this is my job.
My job.
Well, first of all, let me explain. This is for my job, guys. All right. No, it is.
Listen, officer, it's okay.
It worked. It worked. He got his quarterback. He really did. And he's going to start. I think it's interesting. And also that Sark now, and we'll get to some Sark audio here coming up next segment when we go behind the Burners curtain. Sark now has 3 quarterbacks starting right now in college football that were once quarterbacks in his system. Which is, I'm trying. It can't be many of those situations or instances in college football, period. Maybe there's 2 or 3. Maybe with a guy like a Lincoln Riley or somebody like that's got quarterbacks that have, been backups there at USC or under him, and then now starting other places. I'm sure that could happen, but that's very impressive. And that's 3: Hudson Card, now Malik Murphy, and then Quinn Ewers. That's really impressive. It really is. And I thought Casey Thompson would be one tonight. Somebody told him, I think we talked about how he transferred back to Oklahoma.
Yes.
Thought he would be trying to do, because it's his 7th year.
Yeah, because he's started a few times.
He did. He started at is it FIU?
Yeah, with
FAU.
FAU. I mean, he started Nebraska, and then he started FIU with Tom Herman.
Yep. And so I thought that would have made 4. That would have been something unprecedented. But he is not. He's just going to be a backup.
Man, who knows by the end of the season? Come on, guys.
That is crazy. Yeah. I mean, the Sooners. From what I'm hearing, Jackson Arnold ain't looking great up there. It's a lot of turnovers. He's very careless with the football, from what I'm hearing. A lot of talent, but also very careless with the football. High risk, but also high reward guy. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into some Steve Sarkisian audio. He met with the media yesterday, talked a lot about the team, the state of the team, the injuries. We'll discuss and hear from the head coach on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about my friend and my favorite dentist, Dr. Greg Eckert, and his wonderful team. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. My dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. I went to them initially for just a routine cleaning and a checkup, and their checkups are so thorough. They actually found that all of my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways. Yeah, I had won the wisdom teeth lottery, apparently, because apparently after 40, that's not supposed to happen, but it happened to me, and I was caught off guard. But fortunately for me, I was in great hands with Dr. Eckert and his wonderful team. They educated me and informed me about the entire process. So I was made aware of how everything would happen. They scheduled the procedure, had it done. I was back at work within a couple of days. And thanks to Dr. Eckert and his wonderful team, my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. So it doesn't matter if it's something routine or something like a cleaning or a checkup. Hopefully that's all it is. But if it is something dire, if it is something that pretty much could be a very serious situation, you want to be in good hands, and you're in great hands with Dr. Eckert and his team. Doesn't matter if it's general dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. Last time I was there, this is a true story, I actually fell asleep in the chair. I was getting some feelings, fell asleep in the chair. That's how comfortable I got at Dr. Eckert's office. They can do the same for you. Trust me, I had a little bit of dental anxiety before I started visiting Dr. Eckert. They also specialize in easing your dental anxiety. And also, they specialize right now in giving you a brand new smile in just one day. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. Folks, this is a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, or you need dentures, or you already have dentures, you need to call Dr. Eckert to learn about this complimentary consultation and this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day. Sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. U. A confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. U wants to change your life for the better. So what are you waiting for? Give him a call, 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166, or visit drueckert.com, drueckert.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Let's get into some Texas football conversation. Go behind the burnt orange curtain. Hear from Steve Sarkisian, who met with the media yesterday. The biggest topic among Longhorn fans is team health. We learned after the second scrimmage that Jake Majors was in a boot for precautionary reasons, dealing with an ankle injury. We obviously well aware that Texas lost two running backs, one starter in C.J. Baxter and one backup in one of their freshmen. And they lost him for the season, Christian Clark. So two running backs. Now they have three scholarship running backs. So there's a lot of discussion about that position, but specifically injuries overall. Here's Sark talking about the health of the team.
Yeah, we're great health-wise, quite frankly. Credit to Coach Becton and his staff for the work that they did this summer. Credit to our training staff. A lot of the guys, we had a couple of guys come in a little limited, and everybody's back working. And at this juncture of training camp, again, we've had a couple tough injuries, season-ending injuries that you have to deal with, but we're really not missing, many players at all that are kind of out. We're making some business decisions as a staff on what we need to do. And a guy like Jake Majors, who's been here for 15 years and started about 100 games, I don't know if he necessarily needs that scrimmage, but I needed some of those other centers to get some work. And so you make those types of decisions on what you think is in the best interest of your team long run. And I likened it a little bit too. It's probably not a whole lot different from NFL preseason football. There's a reason the starters, maybe get a couple series or maybe a half about that third preseason game, but they're getting them ready for showtime. And so we're having to look at it the same way.
Interesting that he brought up the NFL. And Sark does that a lot. I mean, Sark has talked about openly, hey, let's just adopt the NFL model. And, if we're gonna have a rule similar to the NFL, then they've already experimented with it. They've already gone through the process, the logistics of it. They've worked out a lot of the kinks, right? That trial and error process. They've went through it. They can save us the trouble. Here's Sark talking about how he is learning from some NFL coaches, some NFL minds about how to adapt to this much longer college football season.
Well, all of it. I'm even looking at practices right now. And we pride ourselves on practicing tough and hard and things of that nature. But that's why this summer, I talked to Andy Reid on the phone. I talked to Bill Belichick on the phone, and talked to Kyle Shanahan on the phone, and Sean McVay, guys who have, year after year play into the playoffs and how they manage their team, how they manage their bye weeks. And so, as much as it is, in-game NFL mentality, I think it's also in prepping your team for a long season, and how do you do that, but still make sure that they're prepared to play week in and week out. And so, again, I'm not dealing with 28 to 32-year-old 5 to 10-year NFL vets. I still have 18 to 22-year-old guys that are still learning how to play, and there's a fine line in that. But again, I'm hopeful that we play good football all year, and that we're fresh and we're fast. And I think that's a big asset of ours, is our team speed. And I don't want to lose that by overworking our guys. But I also want to make sure that we keep our edge, because I do think there's a style of play that we've created around here that is one that is physical and tough and hard nosed. And we want to maintain that as well.
Sark talks about that physical, hard-nosed brand of football starts with the running backs. He said that several times. They really kind of determine the identity of the offense and the brand of football they're going to play. And you got serious injuries there. Here's Sark when he was asked about, hey, do you bubble wrap those guys? There were reports from our friends at On Texas Football that you had running backs in green jerseys in the scrimmage, guys like Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue. Here's Sark when he was asked about, hey, what's the tackling logistics in regards to the running backs?
No, they're not no contact. They're definitely thud, and we need them to get thudded. We're trying to minimize them going to the ground, and that would be not a whole lot different than we normally would be. If somebody reminded me of a couple backs I've had in the past, they were at truly no contact all season long when you have one guy. And we're fortunate we've got three really good players back there right now, so they're definitely still thud. They need to get hit. They need the strip attempts. They need the punch out opportunities by the defense as they learn to take care of the ball. But again, we really don't want them going to the ground for some, those are unnecessary hits and falls they have to take. So, but again, it's still, our practices are still very physical that way.
All right, and they have to be, because it's not only important for the offense to get those those reps of physical play, running backs to get used to the physicality and ball security. Also important for the defense to get those full speed reps so they can get angles to the football. You can get your pads in the right place, your pad level, get your feet underneath you. So here start talking about tackling overall when you got a lot of injuries and guys are, or at least being told and instructed by the coaches, stay off the ground. Hey, thud this guy, watch out for this player. It can affect the physicality of the practice and tackling. Here start discussing.
Yeah, no, we tackle a lot. All of our team run sessions have been live, and up until the last kind of half of the last portion of last week. So we tackle a fair amount. We work on tackling a ton. I felt like there was a few opportunities in the scrimmage Saturday where we gave up some leaky yardage on some tackles that I would have liked us to make a little bit cleaner. And that is different for a backer, because a lot of times on like what's called a check down to a running back, maybe his back is turned, and when he turns and faces you up, it's different than when somebody's looking at you from a distance and you're making that tackle. But when his back's turned, he turns, and we've got to be better at bringing our feet and wrapping up there. But again, that's not uncommon at this juncture. We just got to continue to work that aspect of our tackling. But for the most part, I didn't see just blatant, really poor tackling. I did see a high level of physicality, especially from some guys that haven't shown it in years past, that are starting to grow into our style of play.
Yeah, Taff Daddy said there's been an emphasis on limiting yards after the catch, because the defense believes that is a reason that they sometimes couldn't get off the field last year, right? Giving up easier conversions because of yak yards, explosive plays off of yak yards. And Hook'em Headlines actually put this stat out there. If you go look at the last 3 years under Sark, that the yards after the catch per game allowed has actually increased every year. And last year, your yards after the catch per reception allowed went from 4.6 to over 5.5 yards after the catch per reception allowed. That is, I think, what the coach is talking about, and trying to make sure that you have sound tackling in the open field to limit some of those big plays, some of those yak opportunities. All right, speaking of yak opportunities, hopefully the Texas wide receivers will have plenty of yak opportunities, but we don't know how that rotation is going to look. Here's Sark talking about the wide receiver rotation a little bit.
Yeah, it's a tough deal, man. As I said, we have 6 guys that I feel very comfortable with playing in the games, and I would say coming out of Saturday, I would say 7. Ryan Niblett has really come on here in the last week and a half, and have been very impressed with him, not only offensively but also on special teams. And so that's a credit to him. I told him that today on the field. I was really proud of him because he just continued to work. So we're very comfortable that way. I think what we've found out coming out of Saturday is the right combination of guys on the field, who's your speed guys and who's good at doing what. And as a play caller, understanding who you want on the field for what. So it's shifting back maybe to a little bit more of that NFL mentality of putting guys in very specific spots rather than just 3 guys out there the whole time. So it's a shift and a change, and that's okay. But I think it's the right combination of players on the field is probably more important than who's the top 3. And I think that's something that myself, Coach Jackson, Coach Milwee, we're working on, trying to get that right mix of guys at the right time on the field.
Are you deep enough to sub 3 at a time?
Easily. Yeah, we could very easily do that.
All right. I like that approach by Sark, because you never know, right? It could be different week to week. Let's say you're playing one team that plays a lot of man. This next week you play a team that plays a lot of zone. There's some wide receivers that are better against man coverage. Some wide receivers that are better against zone coverage. You may have a personnel matchup you like that week because the corners are smaller corners, or maybe the corners are bigger corners, but they're not as fast. So you want to, put your speed out there to beat those big, long, rangier corners. They to beat them with foot speed. If they got corners with a lot of foot speed, but they don't have a lot of size, maybe you want to put some of your bigger wide receivers out there. Maybe you want to have a Matthew Golden out there and force him to tackle in space. Maybe you want to put a Ryan Wingo out there in the red zone. Maybe you do have a red zone guy, a third down demon, somebody who steps up on those money downs. Maybe you got a guy like an A.D. Mitchell who's specifically a man beater who can consistently beat man coverage all the time, and you're going to get that based on your formation and personnel grouping. It's just, maybe you got a deep threat. It's like, oh, this guy's a deep threat. We're throwing it deep with him. all the time. This team's vulnerable to the deep ball, so we're gonna have these receivers, the best deep ball receivers. We're gonna have their combination. Them have a combination of starting personnel that we'll use because in this specific game we want to threaten and take the top off the defense. Like it could change week to week, and I think that's what he's acknowledging. And I like that. Now, will that affect the ability for one of these receivers to separate and ascend from the group? Maybe. But it also may allow you to cultivate a much deeper wide receiver room you've ever had, and really maximize the different skill sets of different players. Silas Bolden. Now, no matter what combination you throw out there, a lot of people believe Silas Bolden is going to force his way on the field. There's no doubt he makes more wild plays in practice than anybody else, whether you're talking to the players about it or whether I went out there and watched practice and he was making plays then. And when you're asking players who's making plays, they tell you Silas Bolden. And he made big plays in the scrimmage. He made big plays in the first scrimmage. He's just a big play guy. When Sark was asked about Silas Bolden, and he echoed that same sentiment.
Silas is a unbelievable work ethic. Football matters to him. He's very serious about it. He has a great deal of experience, and he has a great deal of experience in an NFL style offense. And so a lot of our concepts and things that we do aren't foreign to him. He has elite speed. Clearly, he's a fearless player. And so we don't view him as a specialty player. We view him as a regular every down player like any other receiver. And I think he's going to have a real impact on our team this fall.
All right. If you listen to some of the practice reports or are paying attention to the scrimmage reports, it seems like Anthony Hill it may end up being or has a chance to be the best player on this defense. Like period. Like he's that good. And has a chance to really this year have that leap for that second year player. Here's Sark talking about Anthony Hill's growth and development so far at this training camp.
Well, I think that, and again, not to take anything away from anybody, but I do think the rapport he has with Coach Nansen has been one that has been a real positive. I think there's a really good connectivity there. I think, his understanding of route combinations in the pass game, his understanding of blocking schemes in the run game, his ability to communicate are all things that I think his level of play has really increased. Now, he's still a tremendous pass rusher, and utilizing him to do that, he's still a very violent player when he gets around the ball, and he will strike people. But his instincts have always been his instincts. He gets to the football. I think he's fine-tuned kind of the fundamentals, the techniques, and the keys, and what he's seeing and playing with a little bit more patience is definitely things that have shown up.
Yeah, they're going to put him on the edge. Now, there's some talk that he's going to play middle linebacker and Sam backer. They want to play Sam because they want to be able to move him around at times and keep him out on the field as a pass rusher on the outside situationally. And like I said, I wouldn't doubt, if you see him blitzing a lot from that middle linebacker spot through the interior gaps too, running twists and stunts. Talked about his relationship with Johnny Nansen. From what I'm hearing, there is more consistent pressure coming from the defensive front. And the offensive line, they're all right, but they're right now being challenged more than any camp so far in the pressure they've had to handle. And I think it's because of the Johnny Nansen influence, more exotic looks, more pressure packages, more games up front. That's not what PK does, but I think that's the Nansen influence. And he is a perfect candidate to be weaponized within a Nansen defense with all the exotic looks. You can put him on the edge, put him at middle linebacker if you want to, put him at the Sam. You can move him around. I think that's what they've been doing in training camp a little bit. All right, there you go. Some good Sark audio. We got some more Sark sounds. We'll try to get to it in the next hour. If we don't have time, we'll get to it next hour and cram it into the 9 o'clock. But coming up next, we got Off the Record coming up. Sometimes it's sports stories. Sometimes there are stories from beyond the sports world. Either way, we'll get Off the Record coming back right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into a little bit of an off the record here. I got a couple of stories that I want to get to. We'll see if we have time for both. The first one has to do with Tyreek Hill, though. And Tyreek Hill is, or at least was, known as the fastest man in the NFL. I think Xavier Worthy might have something to say about that these days after setting the combine record in the 40-yard dash. But even now, I think in the Madden game, Tyreek Hill is the fastest player in the Madden game. He's a 99 there in speed. And in a lot of NFL circles, he's considered the fastest human, right, in the NFL. So recently, and we played this audio, he has expressed his dislike for Noah Lyles, who is the 100-meter champion, won the 100 meters in dramatic fashion at the Olympics and won the gold. Ended up catching COVID, I believe, at one point. So that was a very controversial issue, but he won the gold in the 100 meters. And he has been very vocal in, talking about basically comparing himself to other athletes. And one of the things that I think upset NBA and NFL players, I don't know why, but it did, that he remarked that, you are not true world champions. You should not call yourself world champions because you don't play the best in the world. You just play the best from the United States, which, I mean, the best football players obviously are from the best American football players are from the United States. But I guess in basketball, maybe he's got a good point. I think he was hinting at is more of a basketball comment, but I believe he threw out.
But it doesn't make sense in basketball because all of the best players in the world play in the NBA.
They go to.
So the reality is, what's the best league in the world? The only one that you could have any argument is baseball. That you could say, well, Japan's leagues are really good, or these other leagues, and there's enough baseball leagues around the world.
Yeah. And soccer, I guess.
With soccer, you're not calling MLS world champ. I mean, that one feels a little silly to call the MLS champ world champ. But
no, I don't know. I don't watch MLS. So I don't know idea what they do.
They may not, but yeah, that one feels a little bit more like, well, yeah, but we know the high. You're not the highest league.
Yeah,
but the NBA is the highest league of basketball. The NFL is the highest league of football.
Yeah. I think Noah Lyles' point is that, hey, he runs against the best in the championships and in the Olympics. They go up against the best the world has to offer, and he's beaten the best the world has to offer in his events. So Tyreek Hill took a little bit of offense to that comment, and he said publicly that he could beat Noah Lyles. He said, I'd beat Noah Lyles in the race. And recently, he has decided that he is willing to put that to paper. He has officially challenged. He said, sign the contract and lock it in at 50 yards is what he posted on X. He said, lock it in. 50-yard race. All right, 50 yards. That's different. Remember, Noah Lyles, and we brought this up during 100 meters. Guys, he did not lead that 100-meter race until he won that 100-meter race. He was last, actually. Dead last through the first 40 meters. Last. So could Tyreek Hill in a 50-yard dash, get the best or beat Noah Lyles? That's the question. Like I said, it ain't 100 meters. So take that out of your mind. Like, of course he's not going to beat him in 100 meters. He just beat the world's best in 100 meters. He's not going to beat him in 100 meters.
No.
But let's basically cut that in half. And now actually 50 yards is less than that.
45 meters.
Yes. So it's like essentially you're close to cutting that. But let's say just kind of that 50-yard dash. Do you think Tyreek Hill could best him in 50 yards? He's saying he could. He's got a good shot. It's all in the start. The 50 yards is all about the start.
Yeah.
You get a good start, you're gonna beat the other guy. If Noah Lyles gets the start he had in the Olympics, Tyreek Hill would beat him. I think.
I'm
serious.
I get this, but can we get X-Man there?
Oh, that would be sexy. That would be good. That'd be good. I don't know if X-Man wants to get in.
I know he doesn't want. He wants to actually care about the football season right now. I'm sure.
Yeah, he's like, man, I ain't trying to get in on that.
He's like, man, I trained all for that 40-yard dash. I'm training for football again now. Trying to put weight back on, or
yeah, it's good. And the X-Man has stated though that if he has decided to run track, that he thinks he'd have been like a world-class sprinter. And
yeah,
I believe that, but he didn't. I think he started running track and he was like 16. I want to say that was like the last time he ran track. He was like 16 years old. And after that, he focused on football. I don't know, man. I hope they do it. They'll have to wait till the off season. I hope Noah Lyles is cocky and arrogant enough to accept this. He is cocky and arrogant enough to do it. And then you have Tyreek Hill saying he's definitely going to do it. Remember a couple of years ago we had a like an NFL's like fastest man like competition. I want to say Marquise Goodwin competing in this. Do you remember this?
Yeah,
Am I making this up? Did I
kind
imagine
of.
this? It wasn't as hyped as it should have been, but I swear it took place, and I thought Marquise Goodwin was in it, and it was unsanctioned. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Like the NFL didn't approve it. It was not approved by the NFL, and it wasn't an NFL event. But I could have swore they actually raced. I'll have to go look that up. I'm pretty sure it happened though.
Is it 40
This
yards
would
of
be that kind
gold?
event. You might be right. Who was in NFL guys? Marquise
I'm
Goodwin.
I'm looking it up right now. The inaugural
That might
40
be it.
yards of gold
That might be it.
competition.
That might be it.
Dante Jackson, he's who he beat out for it.
I remember that they did.
So it was like it was brackets, and then but it was okay. Yeah, that's what it was. But it was not big names.
There was not. Did Marquise Goodwin win it?
Yes, Marquise Goodwin won it all.
He won it all. Okay,
Yeah.
He won't now. He's an old man. But I don't know. You're right. Maybe they should bring it. They should try to get Xavier Worthy in it. That'd be good. I'll say make it a big cash prize. These guys are making too much money.
Because like Marquise Goodwin won $1 million.
Oh, there you go.
But the problem is like the other names that he's had in that were so he beat out, what did it say? Dante. I don't remember. Dante Jackson is that, and there was also Demir Bird.
I think it was supposed to be some. It was supposed to be big names.
Yeah, Trey Waynes, Jalen Myrick, John Franklin. Yeah, so none of those guys have. You're going like, man, I'm not drafting any of those guys on my fantasy team. So
I agree. They got to get the big names in it. But if Tyreek Hill does it and Noah Lyles does it, I guarantee you'll get some other guys who are like, I think I'm faster than those guys. I'm getting in there.
Yeah.
And making a prize, that would be fun. And you get like a couple of more track guys, a couple of more NFL guys.
I think what we should do is have Noah Lyles start. Like, I think we should have Noah Lyles 20 yards ahead of Tavondre Sweat and Micah Parsons. And then they get like a 3 seconds, and then he has to run. And if they catch him, they get a tackle.
You're talking like a circus sideshow stuff.
Yeah, be like, you think he's so fast now? Call this guy, he's gonna run after you.
Well, then that's how football players feel. You got some big human running after you that literally is trying to do harm to you. You ain't got to worry about that in track at all. No, I like the idea though. I think it actually, we'll see if Noah Lyles has any type of retort, but the challenge has been issued by Tyreek Hill multiple occasions now. He's done it in an interview and he's done it on social media. I'll say the ball's in your court now, Noah Lyles. It's in your court. Like you want to do this thing and shut up football players once and for all. Beat the fastest football player on the planet. Well, one of them. Xavier Worthy might have something to say about that. And that'd be good. They should do a sequel. If he beats Tyreek Hill, then Xavier Worthy be like, he wasn't the fastest anyway. All right, we come back. We'll get into some other topics of the day. We'll dive into, we haven't played this Tom Brady sound. Okay, so yesterday we gave you Peyton Manning's 5 favorite NFL quarterbacks. Now we got Tom Brady's 5 favorite NFL quarterbacks. How many of these quarterbacks are on both lists? Well, we know one is on both lists, and he's at the top. All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when Patrick plays jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So appreciate all of his efforts on the musically themed days of the week. We also
we do.
appreciate.
We got to send out the love to
Oh, go
Yusei
ahead.
Kikuchi. That's what you say. This is the song for the new Astros pitcher who's pitching last night, Yusei Kikuchi,
Okay,
because they
nice.
say Yusei in there, and they play it after he strikes somebody out. And it made is they just play that clip of her saying Yusei.
And
His
the
name
crowd
is-
sings along.
I get, but it's just because his name is Yusei Kikuchi.
I know, but does the crowd sing along with the?
I mean,
with
it's
the
pretty
sound
quick
bite?
because it's literally just those two words.
Yeah. All right. So
It's a
if
weird-
they know if they play it like immediately after every
They do, and
after every strikeout.
And he's a pretty good strikeout machine.
That's what I'm saying. They should be right now. Should be timing then, and the crowd should be.
I think they're working on it. They're working on it, building
Okay.
in. He's only his fourth start as an Astro since the trade
Okay.
deadline. He's going in. Oh, do you know Verlander's supposed to be coming back tomorrow?
Wow. Good
Verlander
news.
coming back
coming for the Astros,
tomorrow.
man.
So
That's beautiful.
more things to look up for Astros fans.
Yeah, Astros. At least they have been the last few weeks the hottest team in Major League Baseball, actually, and it's trending at the right time. Got a 5-game lead in the division, 4.5 out of the best record in the AL, I believe. Right?
Yeah, they're fighting their way back up since April 27th. The hottest team in baseball. So they've been going for a while. Once they turned it around, they have been going pretty well. So yeah, it's definitely that trade. A lot of people are worried about it because Will Wagner now, the son of reliever Billy Wagner. You remember him? They traded him in part of that trade for Yusei Kikuchi, and he's had a pretty hot start for Toronto. And then they also gave up Loperfido, who a lot of people like. So some people are a little bit worried about what they gave up for Yusei Kikuchi, but he's pitched pretty well since he's been here.
I would say that's one thing about the Astros, man. You gotta trust them in pitching at this point, don't we? They're kind of one of those organizations that's earned our trust when it comes to if they take a flyer on a guy and the pitcher is like, they've earned the benefit of the doubt with me. Like Green Bay Packers and quarterbacks, Chick-fil-A and Nuggets. And if Chick-fil-A comes out with some other type of fried chicken, creation, a concoction, I'll probably try it. I'm like, you know what? They don't screw up nuggets. Even the grilled nuggets for Chick-fil-A are pretty damn good. All right, there you go. So thanks to my man Patrick for all the musically themed days of the week. Also, he comes up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. Always a great conversation starter. This one is no different. What's the topic for the big fat poll of the day, Patrick?
Big fat poll of the day. How many Texas wide receivers will have 10 plus receptions this season? Got that posted up on X right now. Y'all saying a lot. I think there's going to be some of these votes believe that I mean just people getting receptions and not just wide receivers. I'm trying to lower to wide receivers, but I gave you 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 with 50% of the vote. I think there's going to be a lot. That is a lot of wide receivers to get 10 plus receptions. You had 4 in 2021 when he basically had Jaywood and Xavier Worthy that he really trusted. And so a few more guys got some extras because you had a very young Xavier Worthy in that lineup. So you got 4 wide receivers that year. You had 2 the next year. That was Xavier Worthy and Jay Witt once again. And then your third year, you put A.D. Mitchell into that group.
Yeah. I wonder if some people are thinking about just players overall.
Yeah.
Like, you're being specific about the wide receivers. I'm at 4, which is at 30%
I'm
of
at
the vote,
4
which
too,
I think is, I'm at 4, 5. It could get there. It really put like this. And we played, and we can play this actually after the horn headlines, the Matt LaFleur sound, because the Green Bay Packers are actually having the very same conversation Longhorn fans are having. The media and the fans want to know what's the wide receiver rotation going to be, what's the target breakdown going to be, and who's going to be the number one guy, who's our number one wide receiver. And honestly, Matt LaFleur's at the point now. He's like, I'm tired of talking about it. I don't know. He said, I don't. Basically, he said that he doesn't know and that he doesn't think it's important. To have a number one wide receiver, anything like that. He believes he's got 4 guys that essentially could end up being the number one guy for him. They got Christian Watson. I think he's their leader in yards per reception. They got Antavian Wicks. Romeo Dobbs led the team in targets and touchdowns. Jaden Reed led the team in yards and reception. So they have no idea. Like, we don't know who's going to be the number one guy. And Matt LaFleur is trying to, I think he is trying to make people understand it doesn't matter as long as they all can play at a certain level. We're good. We don't have to stress about things that are unnecessary. And I wonder if Sark's going to get to that point too, where he believes he's got 3 to 4 guys who are essentially starting wide receivers for him, and that different, depending on the situation, guys will take on different roles on that team. So we'll get into that. We'll play that Matt LaFleur sound. But 5 guys getting at least 10 catches, I certainly could see it. I certainly could see 5 receivers getting as many as 10 catches. I think the circle of trust, I've been saying it's going to be expanded to 5 to 6 wide receivers. That would certainly be evidence of it if you could have that much target share and spreading the football around and distribution. All right, so good stuff there from my man Patrick for the topic for the big fat poll today. We will also hear from Tom Brady giving you his favorite 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. I think it's a spoiler right now. I think everybody knows who number 1 is going to be, but we'll get into his favorite quarterbacks. He gives us that list. Also, we'll dive into some of the other trends that I've noticed in watching preseason, small sample sizes, but I've been looking at those first round quarterbacks and trying to find things that stand out about their game, trying to find little trends and patterns that may arise with this small sample size. So I'm doing a little bit of thin slicing here, but we'll dive into the breakdown of the first round quarterbacks that were drafted and how they've shown up in the preseason. And also we'll dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets on the show. There is talk that another wide receiver is upset, displeased with his contract status with the team. I don't know what this does for CeeDee Lamb and the Brandon Ayuk thing, but this is a growing trend, ladies and gentlemen. The wide receivers are not. They want more money. This is the offseason of the wide receiver, but they want even more straight cash homies. So we'll talk about that. And also, Xavier Worthy, buy X-Man stock. Buy it. Because if Andy Reid's preseason play designs for Xavier Worthy are any indicator or foreshadowing of what we're going to see, oh man, he's about to have some. I mean, he's about to use Xavier Worthy as a muse and an inspiration, unlike anything we've seen from Andy Reid in a long time. Because I don't know if he's had access to a speed demon like Xavier Worthy, and he's already in his bag of tricks. And it's the preseason. Preseason's supposed to be vanilla. Well, if this is the vanilla version of how he's going to weaponize Xavier Worthy, I hate to see what we're going to be introduced to in the actual regular season. So we'll dive into that too. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed and all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros won their series opener with the Red Sox last night, 5-4, with a Yadier Diaz walk-off homer in the ninth. Houston's unusually poor fielding on the day with 4 errors cost him early as Yusei Kikuchi allowed 3 runs, but only 1 was earned. The Astros fought back with runs in the 6th and 8th, and the Astros bullpen held to the final innings, allowing the walk-off to happen. Roniel Blanco will get the start for the Astros tonight, looking for his 10th win of the season. And the Rangers start off their series with the Pirates with a 4-3 win. Corey Seager had 2 big home runs, knocking in all 4 for the Rangers in the game. And Jose Reyna was able to pitch 4 shutout innings to get to Kirby Yates' 22nd save of the season. Cody Bradford takes him out for the Rangers tonight as he continues to improve after his return from injury. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for those Horn Headlines. Okay, really quickly, let's first get to this Tom Brady sound. Then I'll play that Matt LaFleur sound for you because I think you can make some connections to the Longhorns issues right now, discussing wide receiver rotation and target share and distribution, and what the Packers are dealing with too. First world problems, I might say. But Tom Brady, he sat down with Stephen A. Smith, just like, and Stephen A. Smith will be talking to, I don't know, some of the GOAT quarterbacks.
I believe this is all like Fanatics Fest or something like that. Okay. So it was a part of a big event. I think he was doing a couple shows there.
Where he got a chance to talk to Peyton Manning and talk to Tom Brady as a part of the festivities. Yesterday, the sound that we played, the audio we played, was Peyton Manning giving you his top, I don't know if his top 5 ranked quarterbacks. His favorite 5 quarterbacks is probably a more appropriate way of saying it. He did have Patrick Mahomes at the top of that list, but then listed in order. And like I said, he didn't rank them, but this is the way that he listed them. After Mahomes was Burrow, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, then Lamar Jackson, then Josh Allen. All right, so that's Peyton Manning's favorite 5 quarterbacks. Now we have Tom Brady, I believe, answering the very same question about his top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Let's see how much crossover there is. Here's Tom Brady.
5 quarterbacks in the National Football League right now, according to Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes being number 1. Give me 2, 3, 4, and 5.
So I think consistently, well, the guys that I see, I see Josh Allen as someone who's always impresses me as a player. I see Lamar Jackson, who always impresses me as a player. Some different guys probably have different moments, but Joe Burrow is very impressive the way he goes on his team. Again, another guy who's got a great connection with his teammates. And then I think I'll leave it at those 4.
I'm gonna throw Aaron Rodgers in there.
Oh, of course.
One of the greatest QPads I've ever seen. I'm gonna throw him in there. The man knows the game inside out. I got it.
All right, there you go. He threw Aaron Rodgers in there. I think he reluctantly feels like he was a reluctant. I'll throw Aaron Rodgers in there, like he's got to see Aaron later on that day or something. That's the way he kind of. I just feel like he wants to, but I think that may be the only difference. Herbert and Aaron Rodgers are the only difference in their list. I believe they list the same top 4, but in different order. Mahomes is number 1 for all of them. Then second by Brady, he listed Allen, then listed Lamar Jackson, then listed Joe Burrow. It's almost like he almost went the opposite order of of Peyton did after he listed Patrick Mahomes, of course, as his number 1 guy. But either way, a lot of crossover. The only difference is Brady puts Aaron Rodgers in his favorite 5, and Peyton Manning put Justin Herbert in his favorite 5. Yeah. All right, there you go. So the 2 of the GOATs are telling you the best quarterbacks, the best 4 quarterbacks in the league are Mahomes, and he's by far and away, as we've discussed. Yeah. I don't know if there's another pro sports league out there that can say that their best player, all right, and their best player and the gap between him and the rest of the league is as wide as the gap between Patrick Mahomes and the rest of the NFL. I don't think that exists.
I think
right
the
now.
Closest is like there was a period of Michael Jordan for probably a couple of years where that was true, and there was a period with LeBron where that was probably true, but not right now. Yeah. And so I think both those guys at a point in their career had that where you were just like, no, those guys are winning the title. Like those guys are they're like when you can put them on teams and not really have other people on them and not do, and they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right about that. In I guess in the last, if you want to go back the last 10, 15 years, you definitely can have some instances of a player being that. I imagine was Messi that at one point in the last few years?
He might have been. He might have
been in that category. Like I said, I got to go do some research.
Like him, and then Ronaldo was a guy that was kind of up there.
Yeah, so exactly. So I'm sure. Yeah, there you go. I don't follow F1, but I'm sure F1.
Lewis Hamilton, maybe.
There you go. Boom. Exactly. These are the names that you know because you're like, well, I know that guy.
Like, I know that dude.
I know that dude. Must be that damn good. Must be that dominant. Was Caitlin Clark that in college basketball?
No.
Recently?
No, because she didn't win a title. I think you got to win
you got to win a title for that to do that. That much better.
I mean, we can say
else.
There's points. Tiger Woods was that for a little bit.
Tiger Woods was definitely that.
Scotty Scheffler could be right now. He could be right there. He's like right on that
might
edge.
be the closest.
Yeah,
he might be the closest right now, actually. Honestly, because there's no golfer right now that's even within. They're not even within a stone's throw of this dude. Like it is a gap.
Yeah, consistency and ability.
Gap. Yeah. Honestly, that's probably the one right now. If you want to say this, who has a Patrick Mahomes type situation in their sport in terms of how dominant they are compared to the rest of their peers?
Yeah, the conversation. Anyone where you say the conversation starts at 2, there is no other conversation. That's Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, we're not even debating one because that's a dumb debate. So we're not. And you're right about that. That's a good point about the Scotty Scheffler thing. Okay, let's get to some other discussion here. It is NFL related. Can we pull out this Matt LaFleur quote or piece from earlier? This was from last week. Actually, I wanted to bring it up. But for those who have been following the Green Bay Packers, they have a really deep young wide receiving core, but the question has now come up as to whether they even need a true number 1, right? Or could you just allow all these different talented wide receivers to just fill roles in different ways, and you don't need necessarily a number one guy. And by the way, if there's an organization that could actually execute this model successfully, it would be the Packers. But Jaden Reed is one of their top guys. He led the team in yards and receptions, and you think, oh, well, he's the number one guy. But then Romeo Doubs led the team in receiving touchdowns and targets. And then there's Dontavian Wicks. A lot of people think he's the best playmaker overall of the group. He had 94 targets last year, second most targets. And there's Christian Watson, who they drafted prior to drafting all these guys, who they've invested a lot in. And they think that he has a really, really high ceiling. So they got 4 guys pretty much. And the Packers fans and the Packers media want to know, well, who's going to be the guy? Who are you going to build a passing game around? And I think Matt LaFleur, the way he talks, he's kind of tired of answering that question.
Now we kept asking you about, do you need a number one receiver and stuff like that in the offseason? You guys have so much talent in that, especially in the top 4, but even beyond that. Where does Wicks fit into that picture?
I get I want to vomit every time I hear number one receiver, to be honest with you. It drives me crazy. That's something that you guys talk about. I feel like we got a bunch of them. So, but I think they're all kind of, I think the beauty of them is they're all capable of doing many things, which gives us a lot of versatility from an offensive perspective in terms of how we use these guys and deploy their talents. I think, especially those, I would say top 4 guys, they're all capable of being a number one in some capacity. And it's just, how do we want to attack somebody and where do we want to put those guys? And it allows us, who's going to get the ball? I don't know. It could change on a week-to-week basis. We saw it last year. And then we have Bo Belton come in and be our first 100-yard receiver versus Minnesota. So I think it just, again, it frees us up in terms of just from an offensive standpoint and how we attack people.
I don't want you vomiting, but
appreciate that.
I wasn't asking about number one. What I was driving at is that exact issue. Is you got 4 guys, and 5 through 8, there's some pretty damn good guys there too. But what's the challenge for you as you choose personnel groups, as you pick and choose how you get a guy? Like there's times when Wicks gets the fewest snaps of those 4 with the ones, and then you see what he did on something.
He only got 1 snap the other day, and he made a hell of a play. So, that could be tough. Maybe we'll be a 10 personnel team. Who knows?
The last part, I love the first part and the last part. The first part is thinking about number one receiver. It makes him want to vomit because people keep asking about who's going to be your number one guy, who's going to be your number one guy. And it just seems like there's almost this football logic leads people to believe you have to have a number one guy. It seems like he's leaning toward, no, there'll be different games where different players will step up and be the number one guy. And I wonder, guys, if Texas will have a very similar situation. Well, yeah, there will be a leading receiver. Just because he's a leading receiver doesn't mean he's a wide receiver 1. Like he's not what Xavier Worthy was in Sark's offense the last couple of years. And that's what I want. And by the way, when Devontae Smith won the Heisman, remember he became that because of the injuries. You had Jalen Waddle dealt with an injury at wide receiver. There's some injuries there, and then they decided, you know what, we're funneling every damn thing to Devontae Smith. And so I just wonder if you'll have, yes, a leading receiver at this point, because inevitably there will be someone who leads in those categories. But even like the Packers, maybe you got a guy that leads in targets, but not leads in yards. One guy leads in touchdowns, like A.D. Mitchell, and then another guy kind of leads in target sharing yards. I think more and more I'm starting to lean like, I don't know if any of these receivers to me says wide receiver 1 in terms of, and I think they're all good. I think these guys have NFL skill sets and they're going to play on Sundays. But in terms of a guy who's going to overwhelmingly be the player that you target and build the passing game around each week, and not only funnel usage, but force feed them the football like you did Xavier Worthy. He would force feed Xavier Worthy the football. Like even when teams would double and they'd roll coverage, like, nope, Xavier Worthy getting this damn ball, just so y'all know. We getting the football. And y'all watched it. We watched it that time.
He threw him the ball when his hand was broken
in
the wind.
and your quarterback's hand was also messed up, or maybe smashed it and something.
You had two injured hands trying to throw to each other in the swirling wind.
On the road.
I get that was 2022 Sark, not 2023 Sark.
But still,
it's still
great example of I'm gonna force feed the football to my guy.
Yes.
It's my guy. I'm force feeding the football.
And that was the deal. When I showed you sets, there was only 2 wide receivers in 2022 that had 10 plus receptions. 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now we had 3 running backs, but 1 tight end. Like he just didn't have throwing. He didn't have people to throw to.
He didn't have weapons. Yeah, you're right.
And so he was trying to force. So now you say there is all of these weapons to go to. I may not have to find that one guy to force it. And now that I don't have Xavier Worthy, who's been in that role for 2 seasons going into the third, we have to find it. And unless somebody sets themselves apart.
Exactly.
Because like you could easily say Matthew Golden could be a guy who gets a lot of receptions because he's very reliable and runs great routes. And so he just picks up several receptions because, he's option 2 on a read a lot of times because Quinn feels very comfortable with him. Because he knows I can look at one, and if it's not there, I know right where my guy is, and I know he can get the ball. And so it may be that, but then your big plays are coming from Isaiah Bond. Your big plays are coming from Jonte Cook. Your big plays are coming from Ryan Wingo. You may have a red zone guy that, his receptions, he has 14 receptions and 6 touchdowns.
Yep.
You could have that. Like there's those situational ones. But, yeah, I think that you just kind of have to take the Xavier Worthy out of it at this point because it clearly does not feel like he has an Xavier Worthy of that circle of trust.
No.
But there was a circle of trust last year, and then there was my guy.
Yep. It's a great point. I don't know if he looks at any of these guys as my guy. Could that develop? It could.
Yeah.
You
can earn it.
Become my guy. Jonte Cook could be that. But right now, it just doesn't feel that way. I feel like we're forcing it. I feel like we're Packers fans and we're trying to force one of these guys to be wide receiver 1. And I think they're not. And not consistently all year long, basically where it's unchallenged and without dispute. Number 1 guy. And that was Xavier Worthy ever since he got here as a freshman. I don't think we have that. I think we're gonna be surprised. I would say this is the question. How many games where you have a different leading receiver that leads you in yards, like in I guess maybe you want to say targets if that matters more. Because I think you're going to have, if you look at the leading receiver at the wide receiver position, so maybe you're a tight end. I think a couple of times JT Sanders was your leading receiver as a tight end. So take the other position out. Let's focus on wide receiver. I think you're going to have like 4 games, 4 to 5 games where you have a different leading receiver potentially. I think you could have one where Jonte Cook goes off. I think you have another game where Silas Bowden goes off. Another game where they can't stop Bond. He's just hitting them on 2 deep balls. Boom, blows them up. I can see a game where they can't stop Golden. He catches a couple of screen passes, and boom, breaks them for big long runs. I can see a game where late in the season, Ryan Wingo, the light goes off for the young buck, and it's like, okay, he's had a 3 touchdown game versus, I don't know, like Kentucky or something random like that. I can see it. I can see that, guys. That to me seems more likely than just one guy ends up being your leading receiver the entire season, 1,000 yards, and he becomes what Xavier Worthy was to the offense. I don't know. I don't see that really right now. It could happen.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100% that to me, when we say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, it feels like if you have 7 wide receivers, you have no wide receiver 1. But that's not necessarily the same problem of not having a quarterback because you have plenty of guys. And the fact that you don't, it was a bigger issue to only have 2 wide receivers you trust and a tight end because you didn't have the weapons to make mismatches. And now you have the weapons to make mismatches. And that is the entire basis of Sark's offense is making mismatches, finding those, and then exploiting them. So you still have that in spades. You have that plenty. Because that's, when you're talking about having you can run 10 personnel, and that 4th guy, you put Ryan Wingo as your 4th guy.
Oh my God!
And imagine the 4th DB sitting on him or whoever just coming over and be like, oh man, physically, I don't stand a chance in this. So I have to use any about him. You're hoping you're a senior and you maybe got some tricks in the bag, but those types of he still has that in the bag this season. That's where the positives come in. But and who knows? Maybe Isaiah Bond and Quinn's chemistry picks up, and all of a sudden you see that shift.
Yeah,
because that's the main thing we've had with that is we just don't know, and the reports have not been that it's ever gotten fixed. So, for a report in the first scrimmage was that there was still some issues with it, and we have not heard, oh man, they're hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah, it didn't look good. And what did Sark do? What the second half of that scrimmage after the first half, Quinn and Isaiah Bond just looked like they were now on the same page. Now Quinn was out of the game, but he force fed the football to Isaiah Bond. Like he gave him it was 4 targets almost in a row in a couple of series that he was making sure Isaiah Bond got in kind of a groove. He wanted him to leave that spring game confident. So I think Sark wants Isaiah Bond to thrive in his offense.
Yes.
I'm just not sure he's the same kind of player as Xavier Worthy.
No.
I think he's got some of that top end speed. If you go look at the stat is that that there were 18 plays last season where Isaiah Bond, and I'm going to this tomorrow because tomorrow I want to talk about the deep ball for Texas. But there were 18 plays last year that Isaiah Bond reached at least 20 miles per hour. All right. And only one FBS player had more such plays, and that was Xavier Worthy. So he does fit top end speed. I just don't know if he has the well-rounded skill set of an Xavier Worthy.
Yeah. No, and
I think that's underrated.
And so it is.
Yeah.
And that goes into what Sark says about the situational use of guys and using them more sparingly to, I don't have, 3 guys that I feel I can use 90% of the playbook with. Yep. I have 7 guys who I feel I can use 100% of the playbook with in pieces. So I can use everything, but I got to move those guys around and figure out this one. And then this set is for this, set of 20 plays is over here. And we know Sark likes to script things out. So that early rotation will be pretty scripted out as well. I'm sure, knowing what the plays are when you're scripting early plays for Sark. But I mean, and in all reality, until they go up against Michigan and these really good DBs and a good pass rush, that's when you'll start to see which guys can separate themselves and which guys can make those plays in big games that you're going to need when you get to OU and Georgia in back-to-back weeks. And when you get to playing Arkansas and then A&M at the end of the season after a rough season, which guys can separate there. And that's when you start to get a real idea of a circle of trust.
Yeah. Because you're right about that mission. At least you'll know early on all the issues that Texas has, if they will be able to, if they have already worked them out, or if this is going to be something that they have to do during the season. They have to solve during the season, because Michigan will test it. They'll test it off. They'll test whether that interior D line, those D tackles you brought in, are up to snuff. That'll be tested with that power run game. Whether the right side of that Texas offensive line, can they block simulated pressures and games and twists and stunts with a new right tackle? Trust me, Wink Martindale's going to test that out. All right. How about your interior line? You're dealing with a Jake Majors injury right now? Oh, you're going to be against the best D tackle duo in the country. Good luck with that. Let's see how you can go. These wide receivers, can they beat legitimate NFL DBs? They so happen they got the best cornerback in the country. That'll be the top cornerback taken in the draft. Can Texas run the football? Well, if you can run the ball against Michigan, a top 5 defense, on the road against that D-line, you can run against anybody in the SEC.
Hey, can your offense not have pre-snap penalties in a vicious stadium,
hostile environment,
in a hostile environment? Because you're not playing in Big 12 stadiums where there's Big 12 fans that were going for it, but they're holding 30,000, 40,000. Like, there's
big
much
house,
bigger places.
Yeah.
Big House is one of them, but Arkansas is bigger. Kyle Field is bigger. You're going. There's just a lot more bigger stadiums you're going to have to play in this year.
But you'll get it answered in Michigan. That is literally called the Big House. They call it the Big House because it's huge. And they're defending national champions, so they're going to be loud. Yeah. They feel proud about their team right now. Longhorns come in town, so that headset communication, we talked about whether it's something that you can use in a very loud, raucous, hostile environment, also will be tested. Like I said, I think everything that you need, all the questions you need to answer, that will be on that test versus Michigan. And we'll see how they respond. And we'll see, okay, that's going to be a work in progress. Ooh, got that figured out. Oh, work in progress. Got that figured out. We'll know. Like I said, I'm happy that we'll know in the first 2 weeks of the season too, so I ain't got to stress about the whole damn year. We'll know. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into Xavier Worthy. Why you should buy that Xavier Worthy stock. If you hadn't bought it now, I'm telling you, get in on it. And also, we'll talk about the first round quarterbacks drafted last season, how they are performing so far in the preseason. Got some interesting tendencies and nuggets to share with you. All that and more right here on the Rodcast when we return, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into a couple of stories, a couple of items that I want to address here. Okay, so first I want to talk about why you should buy Xavier Worthy stock. Now, the belief is that preseason game plans and schemes are as vanilla as it gets. I mean, no defenses are throwing out exotic looks, really elaborate, fronts and pressure packages. Everything's pretty vanilla, which is why you see rookie quarterbacks thrive in the preseason. Nobody wants to show their hand, and you don't want to show different things you're working on, different hacks and cheat codes. So keep that in mind when I'm breaking this down to you about Xavier Worthy, because I went and looked at Xavier Worthy's game with the Lions. I want to look at all of his snaps. I just want to see schematically, conceptually, how Andy Reid's using Xavier Worthy. And that game versus the Lions, if it is any indicator or foreshadowing of how inspired Andy Reid is with just the presence and the skill set of Xavier Worthy, man, I'm giddy. And I'm telling you right now, you need to buy Xavier Worthy stock. So he had 3 receptions for 62 yards, 4 total touches for 73 yards in that game versus the Lions. So he had a reverse for 11 yards. He had a 39-yard reception. He had a 22-yard reception as well. And then I think he had a screen pass that it actually ended up being like a 1-yard gain. It wasn't great, but it was the most extravagant kind of a 1-yard gain, one of the most extravagant 1-yard gains I've seen all preseason. So just breaking down the plays, that one reception, the deep ball, the 39-yarder, it was a target to motion. You guys have heard me talk about this all the time. Target to motion is essentially when you throw the football, you target a player who was in motion prior to the snap at the time of the snap. It is one of the most successful concepts that Sark uses. And I have advocated he use it more. Like, use more motion. I think he's at right now between 50 and 55%. Use more motion. That should be closer to 75%. And then throw it more to the players who are shifting and in motion prior to the snap at the time of the snap. To back up my claim, here are the numbers, targets to motion from Texas last year in Sark's offense. Over 10 yards per attempt, over 78% completion percentage, and over 23% explosive play rate when you are targeting targets to motion, when you have targets to motion. And that was that 39-yarder. They brought my man Xavier Worthy in motion across the formation. And then once they brought him in motion, that was a bump by the defense, but it bumped him into a less capable coverage defender because the corner didn't travel all the way over. Boom. And you guys, Xavier Worthy matched up on a nickel slot or matched up on a safety, and all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. Got a 39-yard reception out of it. Another a deep ball, by the way, from Patrick Mahomes. And the reason that's important is because Patrick Mahomes, remember, he's been one of the worst deep ball passers in the NFL the last couple of years since they lost Tyreek Hill. Last year, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, had a 11.7 yards per attempt, only around 34% completion percentage on passes 20 yards or more down the field. He was not great. But they are finding ways, and they can find a way to scheme open Xavier Worthy on those deep balls. Trust me, Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to put the ball on the money. So targets to motion, that's one of the tricks I think that Andy Reid's going to use to continue to scheme open a guy like Xavier Worthy. Also, you go look at that 22-yard touchdown from Carson Wentz. He was in the slot. So they put him in the slot, and I believe they motioned outside of him. So they brought another motion man outside of him, which essentially is doing the same principle, bumping over the coverage, and then you get Xavier Worthy matched up on a less capable coverage defender, not one of the outside corners. So they're basically kind of keeping him away from the outside corners as much as possible, whether that be by motioning him inside or whether that be by lining them up in the slot. So the touchdown came when he was lined up in the slot, and he ran what I call them rainbow crossers. This is a deep over route, and you're just asking the DBs to be able to run with him. And Carson Wentz just threw it to a spot. And I don't know if there's going to be anybody other than Tyreek Hill better at running to a football, throwing to a spot than Xavier Worthy. And they got him on the over route. The reverse was pretty cool, just an ending around. They lined him up, flex, and then just it's a simple reverse ending around action. We know Sark love to do that with Xavier Worthy too, time and time again. And then the screen play was really cool. They put him in motion across the formation. Then he instead of going across, he went into the backfield. Motion into the backfield, and then motions out of the backfield in a kind of a flare motion, running a flare route. And essentially it was a return motion, but he ran it out into the backfield and out of the backfield. They threw it to him as a flare screen route on it's kind of a bubble screen concept, if you will. He got 1 yard on it, so he didn't get much yards. But in terms of, it was another target to motion. So out of his, I think he had 4 targets in that game. 2 of them were targets to motion. One of them was him in the slot, and 2 of them were deep targets. Half of them were deep balls. And he had, so basically out of all of his touches, he had 4 touches total and 3 explosive plays. If you consider explosive pass play to be 20 plus yards and explosive run play to be at least 10 yards, he had 4 touches and 3 explosive plays. That is why you should buy Xavier Worthy stock, because that is just the beginning of how Andy Reid's going to weaponize him. I don't even think he's in his bag of tricks yet. That's what he's willing to show you. If he's willing to show you that in the preseason, imagine what he's got planned for Xavier Worthy during the regular season. Oh, it's going to be scary. It's going to be scary. Okay, real quick. I know we got what against. Let me tell you about the quarterbacks in this class and ones that I like. Bo Nix actually is playing a lot better than we thought. I didn't think Bo Nix would look so comfortable and confident this early, but he is. 116.7 passer rating through the first 2 weeks of the preseason. 23 of 30, 205 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Actually had 1 touchdown nullified. He did have a safety. I think it was like a second down. He did have a safety, so he was sacked for a safety. That's not good. That he looked like a rookie there. But the truth is, guys, Bo Nix, right now, I know we don't necessarily, I didn't have a high opinion of Bo Nix, but I will admit right now, he looks pretty good. I'll throw that out there. Also, Jaden Daniels. Now, Jaden Daniels is really interesting. Right now, he's completing 80% of his passes. He's got a 100 passer rating. Even in that game versus the Dolphins, he was 10 of 12. But the reason he's so efficient because he's not throwing the football downfield at all. They're throwing mostly just screens and quick game. His average time to throw is 1.9 seconds. He had 2 attempts so far that have been over 2.5 seconds to throw the football. Guys, last year, the fastest time to throw was 2.3 seconds. Right now, he's at 1.9. Jaden Daniels' average air yards per attempt, he's at 5.5. Last year, the shortest average air yards per attempt was 5.7. So right now, he would have the quickest time to throw and the shortest air yards per attempt in the league last year. That's what he would have had. They ran 40% screens so far in the preseason, which is crazy. That's 19 screens, guys. No other team has run more than 10 screens so far. They've run almost double the amount of screens as any other team. And it could come from his USC days because Cliff Kingsbury, they ran more screens than anybody in the Power 5 during his time there at USC. I don't know if that's a Lincoln Riley on Cliff influence or vice versa, but it's going to be amazing to watch that Jaden Daniels offense because I would have thought they'd want to weaponize his scrambling ability. I told you guys, his scrambling ability, he scrambled more than arguably any quarterback in the Power 5. The last 2 years he was playing college football. Matter of fact, he had a 27% explosive play rate just when he scrambled. Scrambles, by the way, most efficient play in football right now, 8.5 yards per play. When any quarterback scrambles, only one quarterback is averaging a higher yards per attempt than this quarterback scramble gives you per play, and that was Brock freaking Purdy. So when he's getting rid of the ball quickly, though, he can't scramble. So they're always helping you out because this guy loves to scramble, led the Power 5 in scrambles in 2019 and in 2022. So if he ain't scrambling, that helps everybody. That really does. So that's good for Cowboys fans. Also, something I noticed that if his deep ball is really good. That's why what I loved about Jaden Daniels, I thought was kind of X-Men abilities was his deep ball and his ability to scramble. And the new offense that he's running, the air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury in Washington, is taking both of those out of the equation. Real quick, Caleb Williams. This is the interesting about Caleb Williams. It's his time to throw. I just brought it up with Jaden Daniels. Time to throw for Caleb Williams right now, 3.68 seconds. And that lines up with, or at least aligns with his average depth of target through the first 2 weeks of preseason, which is damn near 12. It leads all first-round rookie quarterbacks, averaging damn near 12 yards average depth of target, but keeping the ball 3.68 seconds. Only Justin Fields, who is holding the ball for 3.9 seconds on average, is holding the ball longer than Caleb Williams. But I can tell you right now, when Caleb Williams holds the ball, it's because he's making plays down the field. And I don't know if only Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, is better throwing the football on the run. And honestly, his improvisation skills is probably top 5 already in the league in being able to extend the play and make something out of the second reaction scramble drill. He does. He passes the eye test. The stats right now, 50% completion percentage, 79 passer rating. That doesn't add up. Go watch Caleb Williams and tell me if he don't pass the eye test. He is the real deal. J.J. McCarthy's hurt. We know that. Drake May doesn't look great. Drake May and Michael Penix are probably the 2 quarterbacks, those first-round quarterbacks that are struggling. But Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and in my opinion, J.J. McCarthy, who's out for the season now, they all look like early on, but they look like they might pass the snuff test. All right, we come back. We'll play Who Said That. That's when my man Patrick plays pieces of audio, sometimes from the sports world, sometimes beyond, and based on the context clues or based on the familiarity of the voice, you have to identify who said that. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my man Patrick plays jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him and all the musically themed days of the week that he helps us break down. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, which is posted already for you on X at the Horn ATX. How many Texas wide receivers will have 10 plus receptions this season? Right now, 5 seems to be leading the way. 50% of you who voted said that Texas will have at least five receivers will have at least 10 plus receptions next season. I'm at 4. I think they'll get to 4. 5 wide receivers, considering how much he likes his tight ends and how much he likes his running backs.
Yeah.
That might be a stretch, but I will say if he runs more of that 10 personnel package that I've been suggesting all offseason, then it would work for him. You'd easily get there if you run more of that 10%. If you'd have more wide receivers on the field. Now, I'm not saying run it 20% of the time. I'm saying run it 5% of the time. Because right now you run it less than 1% of the time. So just ratchet it up a notch. Yeah, it'll help out. Trust me on that. All right, let's get to Who Said That. That's when Patrick, my co-host, plays some audio, sometimes from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world. And based on the context clues that you gather or based on the familiarity of the voice itself, hopefully you can identify who said that.
Great. It felt like the music should be playing. I even thought I thought I heard music. Voices of Angels, maybe. It felt great. It felt great.
Voices of Angels. That's got to be Jim Harbaugh. And I believe he's talking about the return of Justin Herbert.
Yes, he's talking about the return of Justin Herbert to practice and how is it going to can hear music. You hear music.
Hear angels. It's a beautiful thing. No, I mean, if Justin Herbert, if he is as good as everybody has claimed, and he has been held back by bad coaching, inadequate schemes, and just overall, some would even say just a bad culture too, because Brandon Staley didn't have necessarily a good culture there as well. This should be the year he takes a huge leap. big leap because you have Jim Harbaugh, known as being a quarterback guy there. The defense, I think the defense will be much improved because I think he's taking mentor. There was a really good defensive mind, and they're going to be able to run the ball now. It's one thing about Harbaugh football, you can run the ball. They're going to be able to run the ball. And they can accompany a running game with Justin Herbert's, arm talent. They could be making some noise, but they still got to try to beat Kansas City twice a year, which I wouldn't bet on that. All right. Thank you, Patrick, for all you do. Great job as always. Appreciate all of your hard work and all of your expertise and knowledge. Thank you guys out there for joining us. We appreciate all you guys for your participation. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We're talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until tomorrow, same time, same channel. Hook 'em and peace.